Okay. All right, let's call this meeting to order. Star 900. Roll call.
Mike Solori.
Here.
Jeff Hildreth.
Here.
Tristan Sanders.
Here.
Wes Bonheim.
Here.
Chester Sheen. Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, see, we've got a big crowd today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll start off with public comment. Anyone have any public comment of anything that is not on the agenda for today? Allie?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
No one? No public comment. Okay. Well, we'll just move to the consent calendar. Anyone have any concerns about the consent calendar or approval of the minutes or the bills that needs to be pulled from the consent calendar?
I had a question on the consent calendar, actually.
Well, we need to pull it from the approval,
And then
and we'll discuss it afterwards.
Okay. It was just on the bills. Some of the unpaid bill detail.
So we'll pull the bills. And then we'll look for a motion to approve the minutes only.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it. Roll call.
Mike Solori.
Aye.
Jeff Hildreth.
Aye.
Tristan Sanders.
Aye.
Wes Bonheim.
Aye.
Chester Sheen. Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so the bills were pulled from the consent calendar. Wes, you have the floor.
Great. So I wanted to ask about the Amazon Capital Services. Just based on our meeting the other day, is that number is going to be the one that comes down because we're no longer going to have to pay for the services for
No, that's just anything that's been paid for on Amazon.
Okay.
For purchases. But yes, our membership is going down. It would have showed up in February bills, I believe. So it's an annual fee, that we pay $350 for, but now for our CSA membership, we are covering that for at least the next 2 years, maybe into the future. So our membership is now free.
Wow.
Okay. Okay, cool. And then the cost here for Linear for the SC, I assume the Shelter Cove GIS project. Which one is that? What is that expense?
That's one of our capital projects, GIS. He's our consultant to help digitize all of our utility infrastructure out there, so it's easily accessible for our crews. Find where the valves are, the hydrants, the meters, power poles, where all the lines are going. And so it's just getting into the modern age with our, instead of what we used to call the Dead Sea Scrolls maps.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was related to that or if it was related to the fire mapping that we saw that was done before. And if it was the fire mapping, I was going to suggest that we try and get see if we can fit it underneath that grant. Okay.
I would also assume that that's required for dig, right? 611 or 811, whatever that number is.
It's definitely an added enhancement. I mean, we still have, like I said, physical maps of where all the lines are, but this is making it digital and more easily accessible.
Thank you. That was all that I had about those.
Anybody else? Anything about the bills? No?
I mean, I guess I have a question about the Pace Supply Corp. Is that like just a reoccurring, the 10,000? Is that kind of like?
No, that is just the Telegraph Creek Road waterline pipeline replacement project.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes
That's
sense.
all the costs to replace the pipe and the fittings, just for that culvert fail.
Thank you.
Is that something we're looking to get reimbursed from the county on?
Well, we can try. You know, we will definitely tabulate our labor and our parts when this project is complete.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else? More? No? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the bills?
I'll move to approve the bills.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Kristen Sanders,
Aye.
Josh Machine,
Aye.
Beth Baumheim.
Aye.
Jeff Hildreth, Mike Solari.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, next we're moving on to correspondence discussion items. Humboldt County correspondence. Chris?
Yes, I do see that Lieutenant Josh McCall is online. Can you hear me, Josh McCall? Would you like to take over? Might have an audio issue.
Good morning, I can't hear you.
Okay, perfect.
1 second here, sorry about that. Yeah, so good morning. So I do have the stats for the greater Shelter Cove area for from March 15th through April 15th of this year. Looks like during that time frame, we had a total of 78 incidents in the greater Shelter Cove area. Looks like a good portion of those maybe we're having some possible phone line issues or something like that, because 14 of those were incomplete calls, which are often related to phone malfunction type thing more often than not. 13 of those calls were transfers to other agencies, so that would be things like fire, medical, or possibly CHP. It's 7 dispatch reports, again being items that would be logged via a CAD documentation only, not necessarily a request for a deputy to respond for anything. 7 public assist calls. We had 4 911 hangups, 4 follow-up calls, 4 welfare checks, 3 extra patrol requests, 3 patrol checks for the area, a couple of civil services. Looks like a couple of 911 misdial or misuse, and then a bunch one each of things like abandoned vehicle, attempt warrant service, just general disturbance, a livestock problem, petty theft, trespassing, vandalism, vehicle investigation there. So nothing crime wise as far as a bunch of burglaries or anything like that that's popping up out in here to show any kind of a trend or an uptick with anything or a particular significant problem with any one area. Busiest days that month period were Thursday and Tuesday during the week, and the busiest time, which is pretty consistent with most areas of the county, was between 4 and 6 p.m. And the late morning, early to mid-afternoon days typically kind of seem to be, for the most part, where most of our calls stem from. Looking at the rest of this, yeah, I'm not seeing anything else major that sticks out here, so it's short of any questions for me.
Do you have any questions?
No.
No? No?
Okay, no questions. Thank you. That concludes Humboldt County correspondence.
No. Now we move on to Water Wastewater Department Strategic Plan Draft Review.
Yeah, so I know it's been a little bit since we've had any strategic plans in the board packet, so I've been working with the Water Wastewater Department, and we have a draft of that department's plan. Just as a reminder, each department within the district is developing its own draft strategic plan. These individual plans define the responsibilities of each department, including its role and its ultimate goals for the future. When combined, all these department plans will form a blueprint for the entire district. Just as a reminder, we've seen the administration department's plan and Parks and Rec's plan. This is water, wastewater, and then also fire department plan. Next, I think we're going to be bringing this back for the June meeting, and then we'll be showing you the electric department. Are there any questions or
None for
discussion
me.
topics?
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
I've already addressed my questions with you at our meeting yesterday, so I don't have any questions on this currently. I did want to urge the board to do the strategic planning webinar training so that we can all be on the same page as to how we will be conducting the strategic plan meetings when we do hold those. And this is just the beginning. We're in the very early stages of this draft. And so we'll be needing to conduct separate strategic plan meetings for the board and for the public to attend. And so it'd be nice if we were all on the same page on how to operate the meetings, I should say. And then also, I'm wanting to see maybe a different format on the presentation when we start to get to a more solid plan as far as just just a more professional format that will be holding all the details. So that's about it though for me right now.
More professional is pretty vague. Maybe an
Professional as
example?
far as I know that we were given, I believe it was Nick, you provided an example of how other counties broach their report, and it's just more detailed.
These are all finalized versions from our CFP across the state.
Yeah, there's some really great examples.
Alright.
Just to be in line with everyone else.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Yes. I'd like to see a list of prioritized, what again, I see the short term, the medium term, and long term goal. I'd like to really see a detailed list of, and not on the extensive side, this is what it is, but the top 5 of what is on our priority that needs to happen right now. And again, I realize the long term, whatever, in funding for whatever, but it should be nice to have a list of the top priority goals that need to be completed today, not tomorrow.
All right. Anybody else? No? We do? All right, public comment on this topic? No? All right. Chris, you got anything else on this topic?
No, just like I said, I'll be working further with Frank and Travis, Water Wastewater Department, and refining this plan, especially the timeline and maybe adding or revising some things that are in it.
Okay.
And then we'll represent it next month. Maybe we'll focus more on prioritizing certain projects, goals within the plan.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, let's move on. Consider ballot measure to increase the special utilities improvement operations tax. Take it away, Chris.
Yeah, okay. I know we've been talking a lot about this one, so I'll give you a little bit of history. On August 6, 1981, the RID Board unanimously passed Resolution 8107, asking the voters of Shelter Cove to consider a special utilities improvement and operations tax. This tax would amount to $80 per year per parcel and would take effect in fiscal year 1982-83, and every year thereafter until rescinded. At least 62.5% of the tax, or $50, would be used for capital improvements to the utility systems, with the remainder, $30, slated for operating those systems. The tax passed by more than 2/3 of the vote on November 3, 1981. Since then, at the beginning of every year, the RID Board reaffirms this tax with another resolution, the most recent of which is Resolution 2503. The intention for the tax and the dollar amount of the tax have been unchanged since inception, even though 1981 was 43 years ago. Factoring in inflation, an $80 tax in 1981 would be worth $293 today. Meanwhile, the cost for capital improvements and operating the utility systems has risen dramatically. The RID Board knew that was going to be a problem as far back as 1993. In that year, the board passed ordinance number 47 to add an additional $90 to the special utilities tax for a period of 5 years only. The ordinance called for 2/3 of registered voters to approve the tax increase in the November 2, 1993 election. The measure garnered only 47% of the vote and did not pass. After the failure of that measure, the RID board immediately passed ordinance number 48 the following year, which was identical to ordinance number 47. The same tax increase measure would go before the voters again in the June 7, 1994 election. That measure also failed, this time gathering 60% of the vote, but still needing only 9 more votes at that time to pass for the 2/3 majority. There has been no new attempt at changing this tax since then. While the existing tax stagnates at 1981 dollar values, the amount generated from the tax is also decreasing. Recent data from the last 5 fiscal years show a gradual decline in the special utilities tax revenue due to lot consolidations and other factors. I have a graphic to share. So you can see here that the last 5 fiscal years, the number of parcels in the district has been slowly declining. The direct charges from those parcels concurrently are declining, and the actual revenue, actually what we get, is also declining. So this is a problem with this tax. So while the revenue from this tax stagnates and decreases, the need for it is greater than ever. The utility infrastructure of the district is in dire need of upgrades and improvements. The water treatment plant is 60 years old. 4 of our 11 water storage tanks are the same age, 3 of which suffered major damage in last December's earthquake. Even the new wastewater treatment plant is now 25 years old. The industry standard for system components such as tanks and pumps is 30 to 40 years in the best of conditions, and next to the ocean is not an ideal condition for electromechanical equipment. None of this addresses upgrades or improvements, but rather just maintaining the current status quo. Referring back to the 2019 rate study by IG Services, there were major capital expenditures identified for each utility, the vast majority of which are still applicable today, plus additional major expenditures identified since then. The study's projected 5-year average capital expenditure per utility versus the budget actuals is displayed in this graphic. So you can see on the top chart per utility, that's actually what we spent for capital projects in those years. And then on the bottom chart, you can see on that projected 5-year average capital expenditure, this is what IG Services said we should be spending to maintain our capital project or capital infrastructure. And then you can see what we actually spent on average. So the deficit's in red. So we have been deferring a lot of our capital projects. The data shows a total of 5-year average of $460,303 of deferred identified capital expenditures for all 3 district-provided utilities. While these deferred costs save the district funds in the short term, they will require more in the long term as prices increase and the cost of repair or replacement of critical infrastructure rises exponentially due to inflation and other factors. Increasing the special utilities improvement and operations tax is one solution to making up this necessary capital expenditure shortfall. Staff will continue to seek grants and other potential funding sources for major projects, but a modest increase in the $80 tax from 1981 will go far in advancing the district's strategic goals. I'm proposing an additional $55 on top of the existing $80 tax, for a total of $135 per year per parcel, which will greatly assist in securing the future for our utility infrastructure. It will be more palatable to the voters than the previously proposed $90 increase, and still provide a potential increase of roughly $200,000 more per year. Plus, proposing too much of a higher increase than that will consume perhaps too much of the district's available tax appropriations limit, which currently has a buffer of around $300,000. In addition to the utilities, this available tax source may need to be tapped in the future for revisiting the current fire tax or even a potential additional tax for parks and recreation. The best reason for proposing an increase to the special utilities tax, stop sharing The best reason for doing this tax increase is that it would generate necessary revenue without having to immediately revisit further rate increases for the utility customers of Shelter Cove. This tax would spread the increased financial burden of maintaining the 3 district provided utilities across all property owners, not just the ratepayers. After all, the utilities are present for all property owners to some degree, and maintaining them as required should be a responsibility of all property owners. To match the proposed $55 tax increase measure for every property owner, the average ratepayer would have to pay an increase of just over $350 a year, or about $30 more per month, to garner the same $200,000 or so in revenue. Of course, the most difficult hurdle to cross in this proposal is that the tax increase measure will have to be approved by a 2/3 majority of registered voters. As the history of 1993 and 1994 proves, plus the single vote margin of victory in the 2017 fire tax, this will be a major challenge. My recommendation is to draft a district ordinance and resolution requesting consolidation of election and ordering of such election to place a tax measure in on June 2nd, 2026 primary election for an additional $55 to the existing $80 special utilities improvement and operations tax to take effect the following year or as soon as we can, and every year thereafter until rescinded. So I know, as Jeff has pointed out in the past, this tax revenue probably, even if it passes, would be 2 years in the future at least. It's not a short-term fix.
Right. But a path moving forward, a positive path moving forward. Anybody got any questions?
And then I'll go after you.
Just for clarification, Chris, could you explain how the tax is used? It only goes to the utility infrastructure, correct?
That's correct. It's for electric, water, or sewer projects. So 2/3 of that tax goes to just the infrastructure, capital, equipment, whatnot, and then the rest of it for operating. So for the operators, labor, potentially, that kind of expense.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is kind of in the same vein. So I'm just looking at your charts, looking at the actual revenue versus the actual 5-year average capital expenditure.
Yeah.
For the actual 5-year average capital expenditure, we've got about $177,000, which is a lot less than what we've been making out of the taxes for the actual revenue over the last few years. What is the reason for that deficit if this tax is earmarked very specifically to go just to utilities?
I have to look that up. I know a lot of it has been going towards labor. I have to look that up.
Okay. So we don't, as of right now, we don't really have a good accounting of how the tax has been spent.
Good question. I have to look that up.
Okay.
Just to go back to what Jeff was saying about having the 5 top for the water improvement, and I think that would go for electrical, because I think this is going to be a lot about educating the voters here about what this money will actually go towards, so they don't just see it as another expense, but this is also really necessary to keeping the infrastructure of Shelter Cove going. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things, is just getting this information out there, that it's not just another tax that is going to go into a black hole, but this will be used to, water, water and electricity. I think the most important things.
Yeah, which is kind of my point too, is just we need to be able to reassure folks that this tax is going to be spent on this particular thing. That,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can answer a little bit of one thing. For instance, the fund for capital improvements, the 62.5% of that tax. I mean, we do have a lot still in the bank. So according to our current county fund, almost 500,000, a little over 500,000. So
Okay.
A lot of that tax is just being conserved as part of our reserves. So that's why it hasn't been spent exactly.
Okay, great. That's reassuring, because again, want to make sure that if folks are against a recreational court, that they're not thinking that we're going to be spending that money there if we're doing this tax and we're specifically saying this is what this tax is for, that we have been good about that in the past, or there are safeguards in place, and if there aren't, that we will be putting them in place.
Yeah.
So folks can be reassured that that's what this is going for.
Yeah, that tax is, it's kind of like held by the county, and the county's kind of like the bank account for that, and it's divided up in their different accounts, so that in order to pull it from that account, we have to know, definitely be looked over what it's being spent on. So have to follow the tax rules on that.
I have to say that, again, it goes back to that list of priorities. And I think it is about informing, but I don't want to see, I have two reservations. One of them is that, I think that the bottom tier should be addressed, because this is 2 years out. And then heaven forbid, 2 years out, we're banking on this for pass. And as it's shown in the past that it doesn't pass. And then now we're even further in the hole. So I think it's about education. That being said, you've mentioned about a recreation additional tax. You mentioned another tax as well. And I know we have the clubhouse that we have to deal with. I think we need a comprehensive plan so that we can inform and address this to the public. Because again, all of a sudden we're going to hit them with this, 135 or whatever it is tax increase, and then what are we going to do? Hit them again with another recreation tax, and then what's the next one? So I think that and again, maybe even a rate increase. So my reservations are, we need to be informative. Our job is to, and we have a aging infrastructure that's well past due. So there are our priorities, and that goes back to that list of priorities. But when we're already looking at the majority of the infrastructure is 20 years past due, we really have to get our act together, for better sake of a word. So let's, again, back to prioritizing and being really informative. I like how you address this, because again, whatever we put on that ballot has to express what you've just expressed to us. So we really need to formulate that verbiage in the ballot measure as well. Me personally, generally, when there's a tax increase, no. I think that the government's overinflated. I don't think that's the case for Shelter Cove. I think we need more than this. Unfortunately, the taxpayers and ratepayers are not in a position to provide more. I think that they would. So we really have to, tighten our budget. And I don't know where it is based on the budget information that Tristan and I learned from you. So, but I think that we have to, I'm concerned about this 2-year plan out, and I don't think that that's still going to be enough.
That's definitely something we can discuss. We will have to do a media campaign on this issue, and inform the people, that the public, that it's easier if everyone participates instead of just our customers. Because if that's the case, the customers will pay a lot more, and just with that information alone, I think will encourage a passing of this ballot measure. But we got to get the word out. We all got to talk to everybody. All of us have friends and people we see out in the public. And if we decide to move forward with this, which looks like we probably will, that's what's going to be necessary to get this motion to pass. Is just educate the public on what the needs are for this. And I think it'll fly. But anyway, okay.
Yeah, I think the numbers that you provide about the to match that proposed $55 tax increase, everyone would have a $350 increase in their utilities. I think that's a big deal. And I think as far as the locals and being able to get the word out there, I don't know, what the plan is for that, but I'm sure that we could probably get some help from KMUD and some other folks too, to kind of go on and speak about it. So.
And it is just for the Shelter Cove voters, right?
Yes.
Do we know how many people vote in Shelter Cove, I wonder? Yeah, huh. But yeah, I think just plain language, like he was saying, okay, because that is it. Either we pass this tax or we have to pass it to only the ratepayers. And I don't think that's fair at all. I think every lot in the Cove should be paying towards the infrastructure. And so we really have to get that out. Like, this is actually a fair tax. Otherwise, only the people that live here are going to be absorbing it. And that's not fair, because their lot values are going up, even though if this tax doesn't pay or doesn't pass, and the ratepayers are the ones who are absorbing these costs, the lot values are actually going to go up, and so they're just going to benefit from just doing nothing, which I think is really unfair. So yeah, so we just really need to get this plain language out there, like, this is it, this is what it's going to be used for, and just straightforward, and yeah, and also putting out the good word.
I would also like to add that we have 3-4 people today in this audience, and I think that I would like to really encourage the public, the ratepayers, to get involved. Please come and voice your opinion. We need your help, and we need more of a packed room. So I would like to really encourage the public to get more involved. And I think that strategically, back to Tristan being informing the ratepayers versus the property owners, that we really need to have a concerted plan with town hall meetings or anything else that needs to concur so that we can get that word out so that it does pass, because it's still based on history. And there's a good percentage that it's not going to pass. So that's all of our job to inform and hopefully encourage more public input.
Maybe we could do a town hall and give away free hot dogs, get a real good crowd.
Something.
I mean, I would be opposed to that.
3 day of power.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind talking.
Plug in your machines on the 13th.
I would be fine with that.
I would also encourage that we have our county supervisor involved as well. The most that we can get out there, the better. If we can get Michelle Bushnell to be involved in a couple of town meetings and even explain to the public through her perspective, what we need to accomplish.
Well, I would be curious from your perspective, because you're already voting no. So
No,
I think people like you are actually going to matter the most.
Right.
But I'm going to say that as I put the caveat.
But I feel like, people don't want to be talked down to, like, Michelle, I mean, she has property out here, but it's like really about, like, I think us people, like, your opinion. I value, where you're coming from. Like, I don't want to see waste either, but I'd be curious to see, what changes your mind.
Well, no, I'm going to say based on.
If I can interrupt real briefly, you guys are kind of talking over one another. If you could please just be clear, let one person talk and then the other person comment.
I would say that my position is different because I'm on the board than an overall position of vote no for all taxes. Again, I think even Nick is pointed out, we're in a fire position or community, and no one wants to pay more taxes, and I'm the number one. So generally, I do vote no on higher taxes, but I'm involved in this on this board, and so I have more of like an inside perspective of, wow, are we behind the gun? I can tell you right now, I'm going to vote for this because we're behind the gun. So yeah, if I'm the poster child of, I always vote no, yes, I do, because I think government's outrageous. But I think that this little tiny community of ours and how neglected it's been on the infrastructure, that puts us in a way different place than the federal government taxes, the state government, County of Humboldt. And by the way, County of Humboldt is running in a $25 million deficit as well. So I do believe Michelle Bushnell's perspective on future grants and the fact that we're probably not going to get any money from the county, that we really need to push this and incentivize. And as Mike said, town hall meetings, maybe we do fork up and have a bunch of hot dogs and be able to get out there and really express how dire the situation is. This is in the red. And our biggest concern has been about a pickleball court, and we have a neglected community center. I mean, it's let's get our priorities set and then get something accomplished rather than just talk about it.
All right.
Just to add, that's our priorities are the strategic plan, and that's why it's so important to get this nailed down.
Thank you, everyone. Public comment.
Or staff.
Oh, or staff.
Yeah, so before we put a ton of energy, we need to go back and look at the history, right? We led a 2-year campaign on the fire department for a very similar tax. My personal opinion on this is a much easier tax to sell than the fire department tax. One is ours, was all hypothetical at the time. You guys have that narrative that we are going to raise rates. We have to raise rates to keep providing the service that we're required to provide, and that's something we didn't have. Like there is a recommended spec on how a fire department is supposed to be ran, but there's nothing holding us to that. If we stop providing water, power, or sewer right now, then the district's not functioning. So you guys have that. The other thing that I would strongly recommend is looking at your guys' campaign budget. Because there's going to be some costs to a campaign. You got to make signs and flyers, and you can do it a cheaper way, which is just utilizing our mailers and stuff like that. That's the one thing looking back now that the fire department didn't really have that time. We were running a deficit budget, and we didn't do signs or anything else. We did do quite a few town halls. I think I ran 5 or 6 town halls. We did a lot of surveys. Our vote came back, and people said, a resounding amount where yes, we're going to vote for this. And then when it hit the pavement, we did pass by 1 or 2 votes. So, but again, that was a significant raise to something that was all hypothetical at the time. Now I have no question that we passed, a vote, similar vote. But you guys do have that. I do think the vote's going to be a fairly easy vote if you guys communicate it properly, and that's what the campaign. The other side to that is I would strongly recommend looking at a more in-depth assessment of our capital project. We were just talking about this morning, our fire station cracked pretty significantly in that last earthquake. Our floors cracked, our walls cracked. We're looking at other grants for that, but grants are getting harder and harder to come by. And the previous grants that we were able to get, we were very fortunate in being able to get zero in kind, which is pretty rare. The USDA one, we were able to fill out a request for no in kind. And these base funding will really help us with being able to put up funds towards those grants. Because staff is how we've historically have done it, is put staff time, and there's no staff time left to give. So if we're pulling staff time towards the grant, we're pulling it off of other things, and our staff is set up to run the district, not to run extra credit stuff on top of that. So usually, like these USDA grants, we're bringing in a ton of contractors. My guys wouldn't be able to go out and cut all the trees and all the properties that we need to cut. So definitely looking into this more and spending significant time on looking at that. We don't have that many funding options with the RID. We have a handful of tax, we have our rates, and then we have grants. But when you look at it, there's not that many options compared to a larger state entity or even the county. So we need to be very creative with how we do these fundings. And if we haven't raised it since the 80s, are we raising it a significant enough amount to cover all of those? And for my program at the fire department is historically we have not given the full amount of what we wanted or needed, just because we were told we're not going to be able to afford that. And so I think if you gave the superintendents free reign to be like, what do you guys really want and need to see, especially with the capital improvements, I think it would be significantly more. I know Johnny needs an office. The wastewater plant is considered new to us, but it's really not that new. The fire station has been piecemealed together, since the 70s. Every 10 years they add on to it, but it's never really been looked at. The offices just got a remodel, but it was more of a facade to make them look nicer and feel more comfortable. That's the kind of stuff that we need to look at, including the larger scale stuff with the GRIP grant, our generators and all that. I think we could be significantly lower on our estimates for capital improvements than we already are. Like those are the necessities that we actually need, much like us with our apparatus, but that's not looking at all the other stuff.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
I would say that I agree with everything you're saying, Nick. And I think that one of the bigger differences between the fire department and RID, especially on the capital improvement projects, and I can't stress enough about the prioritizing, and I do think it's undervalued as far as the capital improvement, without a doubt. Today's dollars versus yesterday's. Unfortunately or fortunately, based on the fire department, fires are the big thing right now. So we've been in a position on the fire side where we can really achieve a better grant situation because you're focal, right? Where it's a little bit harder on Ridge side, other than we're hamstrung on our ability to get certain funds or monies available. So I think on your side, you got great timing.
Yeah, I agree on portions of it, and I disagree with the infrastructure bill that went out was trillions of dollars for infrastructure during the Biden administration. We got little to none of that. So, and a lot of it, I do believe is staff time. The staff time to go out. I come in here on my 3 days off to do a lot of my grant work, just because it's overwhelming to run large scale, $6 to $12 grants. But if that's the focus of the Ridge going forward, because we do need to survive in a certain state, then we're going to have to open up time for Jessica or Chris, and then they have to give up something else. That hasn't really been looked at. I know Sue did, her part for a long time and did a couple big grants, but a lot of other stuff wasn't done during that time on the lower RID side with our OSHA stuff and other things. So it's exciting having Travis. Travis is really capable, and I'm excited to see what kind of grants he's going to bring in. But these guys are also spending their days off at the water plant. So trying to find that time is going to be difficult to do.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I would be curious if it would be like, hiring like a grant writer. Don't they have grant writers that get like a percentage of like the total grant, and that's kind of how they pay themselves?
We did do that a couple years ago with, I think it was generators. We tried to get mobile generators and they weren't successful, so we had to eat that cost. So there's always that side to it. The grant writing, I think any of the superintendents can take care of that. It's the actual implementation of the grant. Especially like I'm doing a 9-year and a 6-year grant right now. Like that's a long time to keep up on things and then do quarterly reports. So I think it's just managing it is, if we can get a lot like the GRIP grant, PG&E sent in a specialist and she was amazing at how to do that. And unfortunately we were competing with like multi-state proposals. It wasn't just a little tiny district. So we were kind of punching above our weight class, but that grant's pretty much written. And so for my grants, as Jeff said, a lot of that narrative is copy paste to the 10-year Shelter Cove wildfire project. I can pull pieces out and use that for different grants. But once you have that main narrative down, then you can use that. And that's something we need to develop within the strategic plan, is to have that narrative to where when I see a grant come up and it fits within the strategic plan, it doesn't matter if it's that priority. It's kind of like what comes up at that point. And then you have to figure out, hey, is it worth doing this grant? $20,000 grants and lower, it starts to kind of go into, are we spending more time on labor? 20,000 and more, that starts to be, I think it's going to be more beneficial. And so that's really important too, to look at what grants we're getting. And those smaller grants are great for our Parks and Rec and other cooperators who want to help out with those. But as far as the Ridge goes, we're spending a decent amount on that labor to facilitate that grant. But it's definitely, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do base tax. We're going to have to do grants. We're going to have to do other sources of income. And that's one where I think we talked about it last month, where it's like we really need to get a write-up of all the potential income the Ridge need to go after and what we're available for. Because I haven't seen that personally in all the years I've been on the Ridge. We kind of know here and there, but even I have to ask Jessica and Chris questions on certain taxes and certain incomes as they come up.
That should be a priority.
All right. Public comment on this topic. Anybody?
There is one online.
Is there?
Pam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Pam Brenner here. With regard to voting on this tax increase, I'm not registered to vote in Humboldt County, but I do own a home in Shelter Cove, and I'm not opposed to this. And I think that you'll find that that is very possibly true for a lot of your other residents. So how do we support something like this when we can't even vote on it? Is there any way there can be a Shelter Cove homeowner way of voting on something like this?
Yeah, just educate friends and talk to your friends and community members.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you're missing my point. My point is I'm in favor of this and I would vote for it, but I'm not registered to vote in your county. So that may be true of a number of us who live in Shelter Cove. So you probably wouldn't get the support from a pure county voting perspective.
Unfortunately, Pam, it is only, it's just for registered voters here in Shelter Cove. That's how it's,
well,
how it's set up.
I think that's likely why it doesn't pass.
It could be, but I do believe that we have, from even the outreach that I've done thus far, I'm hearing a positive feedback
Me too.
on this, even from people who are mostly small government, support more small government, and are usually anti-tax. I'm hearing from them that they would definitely support this. So I think that we, unlike in the past, I do believe that people understand that our infrastructure is aging and that they don't want to see their rates being increased. The people who live,
I understand all of that. I understand all of that, Tesha. The point I'm trying to make here is I would gladly, if you added that to my RIT bill, I mean, 100 and whatever dollars, paid once every year, I would gladly pay it so that the infrastructure improvements can take place. But I'm in a position of not being able to vote for that. That's my only point here. I don't disagree with anything that's being said. So, I'm at the mercy of other people voting so that I can help you guys maintain your infrastructure. And that, to me, I'm in a powerless position. That's my only point.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. And I would like to point out that the raise is actually only for $55 more. And so it would go from an $80 tax to a $135 tax. And so, it's relatively small there. And, I don't know that it would be possible for us to implement a tax or implement a cost on the non-registered voters I'm not sure how we could do that, Pam. I don't know that that's legal. Yeah, short of you
And that's
changing your
fair
voter
enough.
registration. Yeah, short of you changing your voter registration to
Yeah, which I
corporate
can't
code.
do. Yeah, I can't do that for other
Yeah,
reasons. But if there
right,
is a
of course.
way for RIT to do a special assessment on all property owners, if there is a way, without putting it through a ballot, I don't think that's a, onerous thing to do to the property owners in Shelter Cove. If you could do that.
I'd like to also add for Pam too, we do have a property owners association. So I would say on the property owner side that are not allowed to vote, they have a voice with the property owners association. So again, it's another form of involvement and information and helping to persuade the voters of how important it is.
And that's all good and well, Jeff. The Property Owners Association is not a formal Shelter Cove. Everybody involved, it's a voluntary, whatever your status is, that whatever it is, it's not a form. I live in a condo association. I'm obliged to participate. I'm not obliged to participate in the Shelter Cove Property Owners Association. So all I'm asking you folks to do is to look a little bit further than just a tax vote and see if there is a way for you to put this on the RID bill as a special assessment for all property owners. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Anybody else online, Chris?
No.
And we did public comment already? Everybody good?
This is part of it. Here comes.
Oh.
Holly Bauer, co-resident. I think I understand a little bit what Pam's saying. I mean, the service fee that we all pay as home residents just is capable of being raised without vote, for the water, for the sewer, for the electric. And so is there a way, to then have something that is required just as a property, undeveloped parcel owner that doesn't need to go to vote, but because, you know, and maybe there isn't, I mean, Mike's shaking his head no, so maybe there isn't, but as a special district or as a, you know, is there a way that, yeah, if you wanna own land here, then you are required to, you know, add, value added some way, that's all.
Almost like an HOA kind of thing.
I don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that would be probably a private organization.
Yeah, we're a public agency, so we have to follow different rules. And what Pam was suggesting, although I could see, I mean, we could do that as well too. However, again, it takes it back to just the homeowners, just the people who live here currently. Whereas this tax is spreading that out to everyone. And will also, I believe, bring more in. I think what you were saying is for us to cover how much income we would be receiving via tax. You said it would increase everybody's bill up to 300 and
300.
yeah, roughly $300. So that's way more than $100.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but we are a public agency, so we have to do things in accordance to those rules. That's what, and this is more spreading the burden between everybody that owns property, so that when they move here or they buy property here, the infrastructure is here, and it's not just placed on, the burden is not just placed on the few residents that are here.
But it is a proposition, and so the only way that we can put it on all property owners is it has to be voted by 2/3. And there might be 4,900 lots or whatever it is in our district, but there's only 300 or whatever voters. It has to be voted in by 2/3 majority. So that's the reason why we need the information and campaign, as Nick was saying, so that the voters are aware that, and they're generally, the voters that are voting here are the ones that have a house that are also ratepayers. So the majority of the voters are ratepayers. So it would be crazy for them not to vote it in, but that's back to that information.
We're confusing customers and property owners. And that's where the RID has always had the problem, is we're a special utility kind of municipality district, but we also sell power, water, and sewer. And so everybody that owns a house that has connections, we can put those type of charges that Pam was talking about, but we can't if you just own a lot. They have to vote that, or else the hospital can impose extra taxes without anybody voting anywhere that provides that. So that's what the
Exactly.
Jessica?
I'm just thinking about the numbers a little bit. So this proposed increase in here says it would garner $200,000 more per year. Currently, the price to replace one tank is $1 million. So it's going to take 5 years of collecting this tax to be able to replace one tank. And then in 5 years, the price will probably go up, so it'll probably actually take 6 years. So we have to we definitely need to look at other options as well, or maybe even consider a slight bit more on this potentially that still won't solve all the problems. But yeah, it can help.
Yeah, for sure.
Jessica, I agree with you. I think that we may have to look at either increasing the tax, or we may have to do both. We may have to do increase our standing charges along with this tax. I don't think we're going to get away with not increasing on some for the residents that live here on some level, but it doesn't have to be $300 a month more.
Yeah.
Right.
I also just want to remind everyone too, there actually is a rate increase coming this July for water and sewer, the last of the 5-year planned rate increases. 3% on water, 10% on sewer, I believe. So we are actually increasing rates as we speak.
Just not enough.
Yeah.
Well, my comment again is going to be, and it's really what Wes and Kristen have said, is we want to make sure that everyone is informed that it's going specifically for this, not that it's gonna go to anywhere else, but to improve our infrastructure. So again, I think that it's informative, but back to knowing and what Nick has also said about knowing what the capital improvements are gonna be, how much money it's really gonna take, back to prioritizing.
Right.
And then I have a question. Is there any way to like, I don't know, like these lots that don't have houses on them, is there any way to like target them and actually make them pay more than just like how with the fire one, it was like if you have a house, it was this price, and if it's just a lot, it's this price. I'm wondering if this one, if it's just a lot, if we can actually ask for more because I think honestly, like in the future, we're going to be going towards consolidating lots and actually figuring out how many houses will be built here and maybe motivate people to build here, become part of like the ratepayers. I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
That's how you write the tax. So you have the
Oh,
opportunity
okay.
to write the entire tax. Right now, that is a special, what do they call it? But the letter of the tax and how exactly it's going to be implemented, you have that chance to change it, but you have to change it through the ordinance and completely change what that tax is. It says it's going back to a vote. You can potentially do that. When it came to the fire department tax, it was just pure numbers. When we put ours, we took all the numbers sent to the county, so this is what we want. They come back with different tax options, and we have that on file of how many houses times the tax, and then you plug it all in into an Excel spreadsheet. What we came back was in order to get the same amount of money that we needed on just the homes, and it ended up being like $300 and something per home. And we said at the time, like that's not going to pass. Again, it's our homeowners that vote in Shelter Cove.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came back to the county and said, what about the vacant lots? And they said, well, the vacant lots don't have houses on them. They're not as much of a value for that tax. But at the time for us, it was a fire threat with the vacant lots and the absentee property owners and against the numbers. So we made ours a little bit higher, increased that and lowered the houses and the commercial property. So it's all an equation on how it works out. You guys have that opportunity. If it's it's not going to be probably not going to be happening in November. So I think you have to have it in by September. But there are other options if you guys think it is a slam dunk sale after you get your surveys out there and see what people are saying. But yeah, there's options. You can write pretty much whatever tax you want as long as it's legal and it meets what the RIB can do.
Thank you. I would like to see it actually like higher on vacant lots, just because I think that might motivate people to actually build on them, to cut down the trees on them. I think we do need to target these vacant lots a little bit more and just motivate them to like actually become more of the community, because otherwise they're just sitting here waiting for their price to go up to like 500 grand and then they'll just sell and we don't really get any money back. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of they're just like waiting for the price to go up. And I think we do need to target them in different ways. Or just my opinion.
I mean, if we target them too much though, then don't we run into that tax appropriation limit? Because
Yeah.
And so maybe, how do we raise that? What's the process? Because if we're talking about $1 million for a tank and we're looking at getting 200 a year, it looks like the max from your numbers here is 300, which still means we're 5 years out from a new tank. But
tax appropriations limit does get adjusted every year. Typically, it actually goes up about $100,000 every year. When the economy's bad, it goes down. So you just don't know what's going to happen.
so maybe a thing where we have kind of a graduated tax to try and match that potentially. So we would do $55 this year, $57 next year, up to a maximum of $65 or something over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write it that way.
And then, tack another $50 on for the undeveloped lots or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Good talk. Good talk.
Good talk.
Good dialogue. I like that. I learned
I
something.
have to add one more thing.
Okay, John.
I think that I don't want all the lots built. I want controlled growth. A lot of us are here because we don't want this thing built out. I'm one of them. So back to, lots being incorporated with other lots, cool. But it has to be a vibrant community, so we have to have growth. but I think that we also need to be, concerned and restrictive on the type of growth we want.
I mean, oh, go ahead. I mean, I agree with Jeff, but like, I also think like our road restricts growth, and I think there's a lot of restrictions right now. And I'm not too worried about that. But yes, when it comes, let's figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about punishing vacant lots owners. To me, that seems like a punishment, and people can do what they want with their properties, choose to build or not to build. I'm just not sure if I'm comfortable with requiring them to pay more taxes for no infrastructure on their properties, or in some cases, some of these properties that the county and we receive, and us in the district we receive taxes on, some of them aren't even buildable. So I don't really see. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than
So
that-
we can move on now, everybody? All right, let's move on. Parks and Recs Committee report. Who's gonna take the ball on that one? Jessica?
I guess I'll start, and then hopefully you'll have stuff to add. Hopefully you'll have that stuff to add. Yeah, so this is just a simple summary of our first Parks and Rec strategic plan town hall that the committee has held on April 24th, and we had a better turnout than we have right now. We had roughly about 20 people that showed up. I think we can do better on the advertisement for the town halls. So I think we'll be getting more people as we get better with our advertising and as we progress along with the strategic plan for the Parks and Rec. A lot of the dialogue was kind of just going over recapping what the committee has been already discussing as far as the golf course and ecotourism and trails and Shelter Cove beautification ideas. Two things that were left off of this report was discussed in regards to the golf course is adding a multi-course and to the golf course infrastructure, as well as there was a request and interest shown for what they call a garden forest, a food forest, in which the district could set aside property that was used for community gardening, and that would also help. That could help meet the needs of some of the food scarcity needs of our community, of some of our community members, which I thought was a great idea. What else? Yeah, I think overall it was a good town hall. You can people can go back and watch the town hall on Humboldt Access, I believe, and on YouTube for sure. And you haven't gotten the link yet. It is on YouTube. I did go back and watch it. So I do encourage people to go back and just like these board meetings, you can follow along with what we're doing in more detail that way. Do you have anything to add, Tristan?
I think just having it in the evening, I think that was like a big reason there was a good turnout, because I haven't been able to attend any of the Thursday ones just because, yeah, the scheduling and stuff like during the work hours. But yeah, I thought there was a lot of cool topics that I read or heard people talk about, and I do like that it feels like as a community we're having ideas and actually like being able to agree like, okay, we need to do something. So I'm really glad to see like Shelter Cove in the, ready to move phase. So
Yeah,
that was.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say that we know that this park and rec thing is gonna be for the next 2 years. And so we're talking about town halls, and we don't really wanna just inundate town halls forever. Maybe we also wanna do a coordinated effort to do the added, budget or proposition we're talking about as part of those town halls.
Oh, like the tax, like the rec tax being that, because that, yeah. I mean, the nice thing if we did have a rec tax is that we can actually take out a loan and have, be able to prove we have income for like if we ever wanted to build another community center or things like that, a bigger, nicer, like, we could actually take the loan. So that would be the nice thing. But yeah, I don't know.
It gives us a forum to
I just,
already have the community there. I know it's focusing just on the park and recs, but maybe, there's a presentation before the committee gets going, because it's a town hall about this proposition that we are trying to get passed. Because if we're talking town halls and we're doing this for 2 years, we're gonna have a separate town hall for informing the community that we need to raise a tax. So I think that we could put those together somehow.
yeah, my concern is just like too many taxes, like getting people confused with the special utility tax and then the recreation tax.
I think that that's part of it. Meaning, as I said earlier, the community needs to know about not just one tax, but about all the taxes that you're asking them to pass. So if we're doing a special tax or increasing the tax from 80 to whatever to 135, if that's even enough, and then down the road we're going to ask them for another park and recs tax. I think that it should all be incorporated in one so that they know exactly what they're paying for. This piecemeal is not gonna sell.
Well, I mean, right now we're just coming up with the strategic vision for like parks and rec. So I don't think we're really looking to like, yeah, it's not even like on the table, honestly. I think we're just trying to figure out like, what does the community want to see? And like this special utility tax, that is actually a reality. Like staff is working on it. And I think throwing out like, oh, and then here's another one, when honestly, like, I would hate for people to think like, we're going to spend your $50 on a food forest when like there's blackberries and mushrooms in the fall. So that's like the thing where I would want to like not get the messaging like confused. Like this is just strategic planning. This is like just like trying to get what we have up to snuff, like the greens. And then we did do the airport, fee collection, and that didn't cost the, people of Shelter Cove anything. So I think that's really what we do need to focus on though, is like what we have. And like that's one of the things I'm kind of like a little bit like, oh gosh, this parks thing, because it is like so many ideas.
Yeah, I think the Parks and Rec should focus on the Parks and Rec right now. I think throwing in having a town hall and talking about the special utility tax, and then broaching the subject of like maybe 4 or 5 years down the road that we're going to be looking at a recreation tax. I think that's going to get convoluted, that discussion. That's my personal take on that. And then the only thing I want to say, it was kind of nice having it in the evening. However, what I did find is that towards the end, because it was a 2-hour meeting, that we were rushed at the end and we did skip some things that needed to be addressed or brought up in the discussion that I realized after, that I felt pressured to wrap it up, so to speak, because it was getting later and I could see, yeah, it was okay for a town hall, but for our meetings, it's not good for us to be rushed. Otherwise, we're going to overlook certain issues, in my opinion. And that's what happened at this last one. The next Parks and Rec meeting is next Thursday, and we'll start advertising for that after this meeting, hopefully, and just reoccurring, getting the word out to people. Yeah.
Okay. Any more? Anybody got anything else to say?
We do have a couple people online who want to make comments. Jerry Jackson.
Oh, okay. Online. Perfect.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to apologize for not being there in person. I have a couple big projects out in Wisconsin that prevented me from being there today. I'm sorry. Secondly, I just wanted to add a third topic that I suggested under airports on the report here, just to make it complete. And under airports, you got the two bullets there, the parking fees and the AWAS installation. Well, the third bullet I'd like to add is also the instrument approach, which is an RNAV, that's RNAV, hyphen, or dash rather, GPS system, landing system. So that's the third thing that I was suggesting at that meeting that we investigate further.
Thank you, Jerry. I apologize for missing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else online?
Yes. Pam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I dropped my hand because Tisha and Tristan covered what I wanted to offer in terms of don't bring people out under the auspices of it being a Parks and Rec discussion, and then you're going to discuss utilities. Certain things matter to some people and not to others, so don't conflate the two. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else online? No? Public comment on this matter? None? Okay, let's move on. Third quarter budget review, 2024-2025.
Okay, yeah.
Take it away.
Every quarter we provide the staff and I provide the board with the budget review of how we're doing so far in our fiscal year. So the attached third quarter fiscal year 24-25 budget reflects actual revenues and expenses for all departments from July 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. And also I wanted to add here, this is a new section that's not been done before. According to the district's reserve policy, number 3020, section 3020.10, the board of directors should also receive a quarterly report on the state of the district's reserve levels. This policy states that the reserves will be maintained at a minimum level of 12 months of budgeted operating costs, consistent with the currently approved operating budget. So there is some discrepancy in what that policy states, since other documents for the district mention other figures. For instance, the 2019 rate study report by IG Services stated RID has a policy to maintain reserves adequate to cover 6 months of operation, estimated at $1.5 million. I recently completed a CSDA webinar titled How to Build a Solid Financial Foundation for Your District. And in that webinar, the presenter stated that the Government Finance Officers Association recommended 90 days of unrestricted operating reserves, 3 months. A recent internet search for that same information now shows that the PFOA recommends only 2 months of operating reserves, or about 16.7% of annual operating expenditure. With all that said, where does the district currently reside on its reserve capacity? I'm going to go ahead and share. A little small, but you can kind of look at it. Let's first look at what 12 months of operating costs would entail according to the current budget. That figure equals just over $4 million. We're currently at just over $3 million spent on our total operational expenses, with 3/4 of the fiscal year complete, and so we're right on target to spend what we figured in the budget. We do not have $4 million in reserves, so this graph right here shows what we actually have in reserves. First, how about 6 months of operation, which in the current budget is closer to $2 million than the $1.5 million quoted in the 2019 rate study. When adding up all the available balances in the county fund accounts, total in the LAIF and SEFT accounts, and all the funds in the bank accounts, minus the renter deposits and grant-specific funds, as of the end of the third quarter, fiscal year 24-25, the district has just over $2.2 million in reserves. And this was written before we had our second property tax installment data, which just came in the last 2 weeks. 2.2 million in reserves will more than cover the cost of 6 months of operating expenditures. And you can see right here in this graphic, these are what we can consider reserves. The enterprise, I'll go there first. I want to say that the ones highlighted in orange are very specific funds. They can't just be spent on anything. For instance, fire department funds is for the fire department, pension-only funds, renter deposits, and grant-specific funds. So those I would exclude as far as our reserves go. And those are the small pie sections of the larger pie. So I'm going here. This is what I would consider are actually operating reserves. And I want to divide that up between general funds and enterprise funds, which are utilities funds. Those enterprise funds are meant just for the utilities, water, power, sewer. General funds can be spent on other items like parks, for instance. So when considering these reserves, it's important to remember that the figure is divided between general funds and the more restrictive enterprise funds. And just as I just said, enterprise funds are business type activities like our utility rates and special taxes that must be spent on those services, while the general funds are primarily funded by property tax revenues and can be spent on virtually anything. So of the total 2.2 million in reserves, roughly 55% are enterprise funds, with the remaining consisting of general funds. And this graph shows a little higher figure with the update from the April property tax installment. We're actually at 2.5 million in reserves now, but we do have some bills coming, so it fluctuates. Are there any other questions on the third quarter budget?
No, I'm good on it. Anybody got anything?
I think you're right on having to look at what our policy is on how much money we need to have in reserves. I think what we had in the policy right now, it might not be isn't really attainable. But I don't feel comfortable with the 2 month or the 3 month. I would like more of a cushion. 6 months would be the minimum. Just due to our location and such.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
When you said, back to, I think I did one of the same webinars, the ones that you were comparing it to, are they heavy capital operations like we are?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
You said it, you were comparing and what was the appropriate amount of a reserve? Were those appropriate amounts of a reserve specifically for heavy capital organizations like us?
The GFOA
Yes.
recommended reserves?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were heavy, capital, basically companies or organizations.
Well, I don't know, I guess I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
I would assume so, as government agencies, but I would.
Well, the special districts, they're, mortuaries to water districts to playgrounds, whatever. So, and we're specifically heavy capitalized organizations, because I heard the reserve was supposed to be higher than that. That being said, I think one of my other reservations would be, we don't have an emergency fund. And being that we're in a fire-prone, earthquake, tsunami area as the other strategic plan, then I think that we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we may need to have a little bit more of a reserve than in other places.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else on board? Board questions?
I want to add one other thing too with the third quarter budget. So we are 3 quarters done with the fiscal year, and we kind of have a better picture of where we're going to be. See that big red number at the end of what we were looking at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're actually not as bad so far. Estimated end of year shortfall at current rate closer to 638,000 rather than the 786,000, which is 150,000 less than we thought we'd be in the hole. Still in the hole, but not as bad.
And for clarity, that is also, we didn't make some of the purchases that
Right.
were budgeted for, so
Yeah,
that's why.
that's
I'm also gonna say that we're so far behind on the capital improvements that I don't know how it impacts it. We may be 150, whatever, and maybe we have more money in the bank account at 500,000, but again, back to what we need to do.
All right, so we can go to public comment then. Everyone's done. Any public comment on this matter? No? All right. We can move on. Okay, board member staff reports. I got nothing other than the usual.
I'll just go real quick. Just basically preparing for April. It was preparing for the town hall, met with office staff, and I think that's pretty much it. I have started the policy book homework that was assigned to us back with Jan. I've picked that back up, and so I am going through the policy book right now and trying to identify which ones I feel should be addressed as soon as possible. But I know that staff right now is currently working on all of the personnel policies and making sure and having legal go over those. So I'm going to wait till that's been addressed, and then I'll reach out to you, reach out to staff, and go from there. That's it for me.
All right. Any other board members with reports?
I attended the CSDA meeting with Chris and Jessica, and I thought that they're a great resource for us, not just for the online training, but it's really interesting to hear about how the other special districts are interacting with a lot of the same problems that we have, and especially kind of to Northern California and the Humboldt area. And I think that that's a really good resource for us to tap into in terms of some of the other folks that were there and how they're dealing with shortfalls on their grants and some other issues that have been coming up. So it was a good meeting. I think it's a great group, and I look forward to interacting with them more.
Kristen?
No report.
No report. Jeff?
Actually, we do have a little report. Tristan and I got to deal with Chris a couple times on the budget. It was quite informative, again, knowing where we're standing. And so thank you for your time, Chris, on that. I think that we're going to be having another one, maybe two next month or end of this month, next month. But quite informative. So Chris, I appreciate all you're doing as far as what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you.
Okay. Guess we'll move over to your side of the table there, Chris.
okay. For the staff reports, general managers' activities, did extensive work on the budget, worked on the water wastewater department strategic plan, worked on the tax increase measure proposal. Did an online meeting with the steering committee, coordinated work with Nick on the 5-year renewal of the county's multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which should be done, I think, next month. Finalized. We have to have that plan if we want to apply for a FEMA or CalOES type grant. Met multiple times with staff, the county, and contractors of the Telegraph Creek Road closure site, coordinate on repair work. Worked with staff in relocating our main water line there to the zoo, so you saw the bill earlier. So yeah, it's costing us not only in labor and time, but parts, material for this project. The contractors and the staff are working really well together, coordinating with the county on that. And they anticipate that being open first week of June, or the last week of this month, but considering the holiday week, probably in the first week of June. Met staff, community members on various topics. Attended an online meeting with staff and a representative from a utility billing and customer portal software company. Plans are hopefully to purchase this product next fiscal year with the aim of having it fully operational by this fall. And that actually is reflected in the current budget later on. Attended the Parks and Recreation Committee town hall meeting. Attended an all-day training class in Eureka on water quality compliance monitoring. Met with civil engineer and volunteer project manager Mike Bruno to discuss the sports court project and the county building department's review. That's ongoing. The latest is the county has accepted the idea of an ADA compliant porta potty as a restroom required component for that project, which will basically will put that there and replace the one that's on the airplane parking area, which is right close to that. So it'll be a little bit of an increased cost, but not too much. We'll have to save a little bit on not having to have the one in the airport. And so right now we're still in final reviews. We hope to have those plans finalized to be able to do an RFP and really find out what the project will cost probably next month. Completed a CSDA webinar on how to build a solid financial foundation for your district. Attended an online meeting with staff and representatives from Moonshot Missions to discuss funding options to replace our 4 failing potable water storage tanks plus the water treatment plant. In fact, I've applied online to Cal OES for potential grant consideration for replacing those 4 tanks. Also reached out to USDA to schedule discussions on other potential grant consideration. And Moonshot Missions on our behalf will reach out to the California Drinking Water State Revolving Fund for a possible loan program. So yeah, right now, as I think Nick mentioned earlier, complete no in-kind grants don't seem to exist out there. The most likely grant right now is the Cal OES one, since those tanks were damaged in the earthquake. We have a good backup material on why we need that project. The thing is, they are 75% funding, so districts have to come up with 25%. And if it's $1 million tank, 4 tanks, that's $1 million we'd have to come up with. And that's probably going to be a combination of loans and grants. Probably what that's looking like. That concludes my.
What's next?
All right, hazard department. There are various things we have to do annually, and in the month of April, we have to complete the payment card industry compliance requirement, which is a way of ensuring that we protect cardholder information and it's not accessible for hacking or getting access to somehow. Let's see. Also, I reported last month verbally about the new calendar on the website that was completed during April. We also at the same time had a DDoS attack on our website. I've been working with our IT provider and website designer trying to remedy that. We were going to try to move our web hosting to a more secure hosting service. However, our current web host was unable to give us some information that's needed to do that. So Humboldt Technology is continuing to try to get the right person to do that. But if we are able to do that, we will be moving it to a free web hosting that's actually more secure. Save the district $35 a month. I worked on getting things together for the Parks and Rec Town Hall meeting, including producing flyers, and displays for the meeting, and all other regular activities to host the meeting. Attended that software demo on the billing software. I also created an in-house digital calendar that will consolidate all of the time off requests, the holidays, board and committee meetings, and also the on-call calendar for staff. I haven't released it to other staff for access yet because I'm still finishing putting it together, but I like it personally. I can see everything that's going on at a glance. I work with Humboldt County Building and Planning because every time somebody wants to build a house here, we get referral requests, and they do everything online now, and it wasn't populating our district's referral. So I got that fixed with them, so that we can now see all the houses that are in the permit process in Shelter Cove. Attended the Moonshot Missions meeting. I also did the CSDA training for how to build a solid financial foundation for your district. Attended a budget advisory committee meeting. I also met with WAPA to learn more about the integrated resource planning reporting that's required of us. This is being done on charters. They're very helpful, so I understand that report. And office staff also helped the water department with the lead and copper rule revision report that's required to potentially identify any lead or copper service lines that are within the water system. So we have to research any building that's, well, I guess pretty much every house for that. And we also I also spent some time working with legal support to go over all of our personnel policies. And she had a lot of comments on some of our policies, so we'll be bringing them to the board next month for your review.
Awesome. Thank you. Who's next? Travis?
Okay. Morning, everybody. First one.
Travis, welcome. We've got a gauntlet set up for you to run through before you.
Some hazing.
Okay, so last month, wastewater department, we treated 2,255,000 gallons of wastewater. It's a fun fact. It's monthly. That's approximately what we do. Average is around 7,000 gallons a day. All testing operational requirements and discharge requirements were met. Staff all looked at our disc press, which is part of our wasting equipment. Right now, we're collectively trying to make it more efficient and just troubleshoot it, make it better. The guys, staff replaced the intake pump and outtake, so all the problems that when we're not there in the plant will stop. Hopefully, will go away. Then continuing wasting will 8 hours a day, approximately 7. We also replaced all the 44 micron screens and greased all the oxidation rotors. That was pretty much what we've got done here in wastewater. The water department, we found a really big leak on the bug tank system. We've been searching for that since last December, an earthquake, which was approximately 1 to 2 feet a day. Right now, our SCADA radio system doesn't work, so it's boots on the ground to go turn a valve, approximately an hour a day, just to go turn on a valve, fill that system. So that's huge right now. That's fixed and been taken care of. Got to thank Joe and Anthony for all their work on all the breaks also. Anthony is a new employee. Joe Mendes took over the department. They've had more breaks in the last 6 months than the last couple of years. And they've been great. The electrical department's helped out also. And Keith and Wade have also stepped up a bunch. What else we have here? So we completed our annual report. Right now, we're working with Moonshot Consultants. Chris has completed the hazard mitigation grant. We're also looking at USDA grants. And then I'm looking at the community block programs grant. So we'll be also working with TIC, trying to collaborate with the fire department so we can have water structure in wildland. And I don't think that's ever really been able to do that. Yeah, so that's going to open up potentially more access to more grants. I've met numerous times with the county engineers, trying to plan logistics, working with Wilcox, the whole bridge culvert. Everything's going good. I think we're approximately a week out. Today or tomorrow, they're going to be concreting the threshold or approach to the backside. That's going to be approximately a week to 2 weeks dry time. And then staff approximately a week to get brackets in place and then our distribution line. Then we'll be able to continue to pump to the north system, and that's going to be huge for operating staff time. What else have we done? We've changed out our CL2 relay and valve body at the water treatment plant. It was constantly not working with SCADA, turning off, turning on. Big problem, and we figured that out, and now that's not what also. 2 employees went down to the RCA class for sampling techniques and procedures. I completed and passed my computer-based backflow assembly test up at Cal Poly, and then I went down to Sacramento State and passed the hands-off portion. So updated our every 3 years backflow assembly tester's license. And right now I'm working with Chris, Frank, and developing a cross-connection control program that's mandated by the state. We're working on a 2025 sampling schedule. We're also, Frank and I, Chris, are looking into talking to Humboldt State, Cal Poly, getting their engineers, maybe the capstone project. And what that is basically Cal Poly's engineers have projects within municipalities, county. They could look at wastewater, water, electrical, solar, any type of project the district wants, and we would have to pay engineer firms high costs, and we get a lot of really bright future-looking students working for us. And then Tristan, when you said about the grant writers, I wrote down a note also that we should reach out and try to connect with internships at Cal Poly too for that, possibly. Not sure what's out there, but that could be a really great, valuable resource too.
Well, I love the idea of like bringing young people down here too, and like seeing Shelter Cove and not even having it in their head. So yeah, maybe they would want to move here. And cool, John.
Yeah, and typically, Travis, too, I've found that once you start developing those relationships with those universities, then, that ends up being a kind of a reciprocal thing. And so I think it's great that you're reaching out to them and starting to work with them more.
One thing that's stuck in my craw is this SCADA system.
Yeah.
I'm sick of hearing about it. It's costing us a ton of man hours weekly. This company said they could fix it. They have not. They said they could monitor it from their office and fix anything that comes up, and they cannot. I think we need to move this to a top priority for the water portion to get this thing, this cancer to be fixed, to be eradicated or fixed or whatever we need to do moving forward. It's just costing us way, way, way too much. I don't know what else there can do. I'm not an expert. Maybe there's a SCADA expert up at HSU. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I would love to see some type of solution to that. It's just costing us way too much. It's costing your department way too much man hours. So,
okay, we're looking into it. Dave Absner right now is working on it. He's been extremely competitive. We had 4 other professional SCADA outfits. They were approximately around $300K. David Absner quoted us $30,000, which is huge, 300% less. He has basically gotten pretty far with our HMI, our human media interface. All of our hardware is very good, Schneider 474. The HMI part is extremely lacking. Talking to the other 4 professional companies, SCADA companies, our existing SCADA company is at best elementary. It looks like it was self-built, self-taught from a collective, anybody else that we talked to. So our existing state right now is pretty bad. We have no schematics on any of our RTUs or anything. Every well site booster pump was installed differently, and there's no schematics or details on it. The whole telepathical radio path was changed, and in-house, not professionally done. So there was a lot more that the guy that we chose had to take on. And that's why there's actually an extreme amount more than he used to.
Are you satisfied with his performance? Do you anticipate that he'll be able to fix the problems?
Yes, he developed the panel over for the electrical department, and everything's working. It's all installed correctly. It looks great, but you got to start from scratch and didn't have to come in and do a big mess. And then everything that we've seen him work on in the background, it's nonstop. He's working with like our mineral technologies. There's just, it's pretty bad.
Okay.
But I do believe that he's capable and has a really good track record, works for all around the country, and is constantly going back. He just went back to North Carolina, the huge power generation plant that had a big natural disaster that makes our system look very elementary.
Right. And the company or the individual that created or installed our SCADA system initially, do you know if they're still in business?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
They moved on.
Chris, maybe we can meet offline and talk about that and look at their contract.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I can update too on the SCADA. We had budgeted $60,000 in the capital budget for water, wastewater this fiscal year. Right now, he's done this fiscal year. He's coming back in October. And we spent probably all of that, I think maybe 50 to 60, somewhere in there. And he anticipates spending another 40,000 in October and be done. So,
I'm very disappointed in that in terms of like the amount spent, but it does sound like he's providing value for the amount. And so I do appreciate that. But I think maybe we should talk offline a little bit more about possibly recouping these costs from the initial group.
If I could, maybe from a historical reference, it's my understanding that the implementation of the SCADA system originally was done in-house because it was said that we would be doing it. We already had an employee who could do it, and it would save the district money. Instead, it has cost the district above and beyond what the initial quote was, even in-house.
Yeah.
And we actually lost a bunch of money due to that.
Okay. So there's probably no contract or anything?
Nope.
Okay.
I guess just another thing that this brings to mind too is like the schematics and things like that. I hope like that's like kept in house, like we have like a file now. So when people like 10 years from now need to know how like these tanks are, set up, that it'll be there. And then also for even like the website information, Jessica, where it's like, yeah, we just need to have like all these things like in files. So it's like, oh, okay, yes, this is the password. This is, just institutional knowledge that, will always be accessible.
Yeah, lawyers are always known for their positivity. And so, in the event that something were to happen to Jessica tomorrow, that, we could come in and be able to take care of that. And the same thing with the SCADA system. So that's always something that we try and push. As long as, it's not just, oh yeah, Jessica knows that password, and so it's not a big deal, as long as there's some repository for that information. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, I figured you're up to date on it, but just thinking about the schematic stuff, like, yeah, then we're in trouble.
The SCADA system was implemented without recognized blessing, so we weren't even asked. Water and wastewater were kept out of it, and we actually had gone to the general manager's office to try to stop it. I was kicked out personally, and Frank was after. So we tried our best.
Two Joe managed to get that
Yeah. But I mean, the idea is once this is up to snuff, you'll be able to like look on your iPad, right? And da 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 da, da. Or even on your phone, I'm guessing.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and then they have a deadline for like when this is supposed to be like completely up and running for you guys? Like,
No.
okay, we should probably have something like that because I know, I mean, like our business, we have like a lot of automated stuff too. And it is like running around and pinning these people down. And like, it's frustrating. You don't want to be like, but the, squeaky wheel is the one that gets the grease. And it is so much nicer. Now our employees, they can look on a Saturday. No one's driving over the hill, So super important to like, yeah, actually like, okay, this needs to be solid, like done. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, good job. It sounds like he was starting over. At the end of the day, he took a piecemeal project, had to start over. I'm glad you have the confidence in him. Last year comment about the lawyer, you didn't meet my dad. But I'm gonna say good job, but I'm gonna have to agree with Mike. I don't wanna have this thing nickel and dime us to death. Let's just be done with it so that it can start saving us money rather than the black hole.
All right. Is that it, Travis?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Did you want to cover any Parks and Rec stuff?
Would you like it?
Frank usually kind of did water, wastewater, and parks.
Okay, I didn't know that. All right. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't really ready for that.
Well, I can do this golf course.
Versus green in spring. Let's move on.
The greens are green.
But they're not, apparently.
Oh,
So they don't put us-
it's tie-dye, hippie stuff.
That section, the overflow parking for the clubhouse has been mowed, but it's still horrible. That's our overflow parking. If anything was to happen and people have to go down there and pile a bunch of cars in there, I mean, we could start fires and what have you down there. We got to keep that cut at a manageable level so we don't have issues moving forward. Plus, we rent out that space and people could need that parking area, that overflow parking.
Still adjacent to the parking lot there.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
We'll make sure to get that before Memorial Day weekend. There are some events in the building then.
Yeah, that's our emergency, like our CERT location too. And so that needs to be kept up.
Anthony should be mowing that today. But we'll
I'll go drive
make
by.
sure though.
Make it a little shorter than last time.
Yeah.
A little short.
My
Talked
last
about it
one.
this morning, but definitely on our radar.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
The only thing I really wanted to add about Parks and Rec was that the crew installed airport gates, access gates, sort of keep people honest from driving on the taxiway and whatnot. And then also the airplane parking collection fee boxes were installed. So we haven't actually gone down and checked and seen what we did.
I'm gonna say thanks, Chris. That's been one of my pet things, so thank you.
So there's changes happening.
Have those gates restricted any access for the fire department for LZs down there or anything like that?
What it means is no one's
Did we take a public comment?
I just have one thing on the Parks and Rec. I'm a little concerned about the distribution and electric employees being the ones being used to mow and upkeep that, because that pay comes out of the electrical, and this is for the Parks and Rec. And so I'm kind of wondering how to manage that in the future. I know we're short-staffed, but I don't feel like our electrical guys should be doing that. That's
Hopefully when they do that, they write down on their timesheet, there's a column for golf course that they're working on, and then we can.
Then we can.
those hours.
Yeah, I feel like
okay. Good.
And are they, and they're being paid the same union rates for that?
The same salary, yeah.
Thank you.
What's the comment online? I know we still have to go to John and Jerry's online. You probably want to talk about the airplane before we move on. I guess I can call on Jerry real quick.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry about that. Yeah, just a quick question about the signage or for the payment of the tie-down fees. Is that up? How do pilots find out that they owe money and where to pay?
Is that how?
I yeah, I saw the box, and it says it pretty plainly. Yeah, overnight fees $5.
It's sort of a suggested donation, but we're saying overnight parking fees $5. We'll see how that goes right now.
Just where is it? Where is the box? And I landed about a week ago out there and parked on the north side, and I didn't see any indication of it. So I'm just curious about how does a pilot find out about it, and where's the box physically located? Is my question.
So boxes are located near the tie-down areas. They have been lettered recently, so it may look different than what you saw. There are now stickers on the face of it that says tie-down fees, and then located below it there is a envelope, and there's a sticker on the front of it. I don't remember exactly what the sticker says. I think it's an airport collection envelopes, and if you take out an envelope, it explains the fee on the envelope.
Okay, I'm sorry. The clarity of the response wasn't, at least on my end here. Physically, where is this located?
Well, I can say on the north side, I think there's a tree kind of against the hillside there, right where the planes park.
Okay.
I guess they're like mailboxes. Maybe they're a little difficult to see. Plus they're green, so maybe they blend in with the grass. And on the south side, it's sort of right near the porta potty that's there. South and back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
John, you want to?
Sorry about that.
All right, so last month, the two outages on Beach Road. One was from a limb on the line, and the second one was from a bad connection. We did tree work on the tie line, attended CPR training, so now it'll be CPR certified. This is with the water main leak on Ridgeview Circle. Started and completed the intercom system panel upgrade, so they got that done for us. Attended training course in Reno, started budgeting for this coming fiscal year, and trip to pick up materials and attend training in back.
I've got a comment. And it's still, unless we have a specific topic that these two gentlemen need to address. In the last 2 hours, gentlemen, what could have you done for your department than sitting here just trying to figure out not to fall asleep? And so, Chris, anything that they just said, you could have told me. And if I have a question that you couldn't answer, then I'm sure that you would contact your supervisors directly. As a project manager, that would kill me to watch my men sit idle because they're paid employees to do their job, and this is not doing their job, but that's my opinion.
So Jeff, if I may, there's a reason we did this, and it's something that we're going to take a look at. I was just going to mention to Chris that there's nothing in the action items that would involve these two gentlemen. They could probably go back to work at this point once they've given their reports. Yeah, I think it's something we should discuss, definitely.
Yeah, I disagree. I do believe that there is some value having them here. We're going to be going over the budget here, and I would like to be able to ask them questions. Instead of putting it all on Chris, we made the decision to have a superintendent. That's part of what they're getting paid for, is to be here and engage with the board. And I do find value in having them here. It's my personal opinion. I understand it looks to you like they're idle, but they're not. And like I said, when we get to the budget, I think it's going to be important to have them here and to explain some of the deferred maintenance costs that are going to be budgeted for in this budget.
My comment would be that therefore, that would be a job specific or action specific where they're needed. The budget, I agree, but that's it. The reason why they're here is because of the last general manager who was trying to snow the board. You're not that guy. And if it is, we'll see, we can start bringing them back. But when it's a job specific or action item where they're needed, I can agree, especially on the budget, and that's not applied today.
What do you mean the budget? We are doing the budget.
Strategic plan.
And the strategic plan was also another thing that was nice to have on.
Anyway, moving forward.
That's where you go next.
Public comment?
And we still have the fire department.
So, Ray, did you have a comment?
I'm not sure you're calling on me.
Yeah.
Okay, real quickly, why don't we swap item number Roman numeral 8 and make it Roman numeral 7 and bring it ahead of the correspondence discussion items, and then under that swap number 2, which is the operational status report, to make that number 1 and make them, so that way they don't have to sit through all the stuff we talked about in Roman numeral 7 and also Roman numeral 8.1. I mean, I sympathize with Jeff's comments, but I also realize that these guys were hidden from us under the other administration. So, maybe this is a way to fix that. Just move them ahead in the schedule so they don't have to sit through all the other stuff. What do you think?
Actually, Jerry, I've mentioned that previously as well.
We'll have to touch on this at a later time, but I think we're headed in the right direction. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. First, I just wanted to thank everybody that's on the Zoom meeting, and the people on Zoom can't tell there's a packed audience, so it was really good turnout today. Yeah, it's one of those things. But thank you guys. It's disheartening to see one of the most important topics with our budget that comes up, and we don't have the community involvement until it's something like the sports court or a pump track or stuff like that. So I don't know how we communicate that better, but it's one of those things where as the RID, if we want to start selling these proposed tax increases, we need to make people want to come and be more involved in whatever capacity that is. That might not be sitting through the meetings. It might just be more on what the website's doing, and people have that opportunity that if they can't make the RID meetings, they can write in, and Jessica or Chris will read whatever comments they've done that before. Same thing with these guys. These guys, if they have something going on, they've been voluntary before too, and they haven't been here when they have large projects going on. And I do think that, like the fire department, we can have action items in any different program in any different week if that's the route that we're going to go. We are so far behind with policies and large projects and RFPs and everything else that we could justify having those action items that we all have to be there for. Historically, we just haven't done that. And I think that does slow down some of the progress when it comes to large projects. It's just our ability to get that through and put it on your guys' plate. And it is going to make more work for you, and our meetings are going to be longer, but that's what it's kind of going to take. Unfortunately, I said it last month. We're 4 different boards in one board. You guys are a fire board, you guys are a water board, you guys are a sewer board, and you guys are a electrical board. And so any of those meetings can be a 2 or 3 hour meeting, and then now times by 4. So I appreciate all the time you guys put in, and I know it's a difficult board, but we're going to have a hard time making them shorter as we go into the future if we want to get stuff done. So speaking of that, we fire department had a really busy admin month. We went to a lot of meetings this month. We have the Joint Power Alliance that's going down, and that's something that it's been over 2 boards now. Basically, in a nutshell, what that is 14 fire departments in Southern Humboldt have agreed to sign a joint powers agreement. And that agreement is going to be to create a separate entity called Southern Humboldt Fire Rescue. That entity is going to help regionally, doing a lot of what we're doing right now for the Chiefs Association, but we'll have our own powers. So we'll have our own budget, our own bank accounts, all that is what we don't currently have. So that's really exciting. That's going through. Like I said, we have 14 fire departments that are all Southern Humboldt departments that are involved in that. What that means for Shelter Cove specifically is because we have been so well off in the future, in the past, moving into the future is we want that consistent level of care for our community members from here to Fortuna. Right now we don't have that. It's a vastly different level of care just when you drive to the next fire district over the hill. So that's been one of our driving visions that we started a couple years ago. The other big thing we're trying to do is leverage my position as a full-time fire chief to get more funding. And so I spent a lot of time on the Measure Z Citizens Advisory Committee up in Eureka, and we were fully funded at the Chiefs Association for $2 million of Measure Z funds. So super exciting. What that means to Shelter Cove specifically is that gets broken out. The biggest thing is we don't have to pay for our dispatch costs, which could be $30,000, $40,000 a year if we had to pay for that ourselves. So that gets totally covered. And then also Southern Humboldt gets $500,000 to basically allocate as we see fit at the Chiefs Association. That's what paid for $75,000 of that building. And then almost all of our gear the last 5 years for PPE has been covered through Measure Z as well. So when you guys look at my budget and I use up all that money, we're paying a lot of other stuff in something that really isn't captured on our income. Our budget doesn't really show that as a grant because it's a basically straight gift from the Chiefs Association from the county. It's not an applied for grant that we have. So I have that tracker, but it's not something that we show. We show it in our values, so our assessed values, or it's in there, all the equipment we get, the building, but it's not shown as like an income line because it's not actually a check cut to the district. It's goods given to the district through the Chiefs Association. So the really exciting part about Measure Z is we've been really consistently getting that fully funded. It's a fight every year where we have to do an application. We're up against every other entity, including the sheriff and all the other law enforcement entities. But the chiefs have that consolidated application. So 42 departments come together and we make it work. So I'm excited to try and keep that going into the future. I flew to Chicago to inspect the new ambulance. So it's a beautiful, beautiful ambulance. So I'm really excited about that. Some history on our current ambulance is it was a 1992 ambulance that 11 years ago we got remounted, and the discussion came up to the board, and we wanted a new ambulance back then. They said, "Oh, it's too expensive." We went with the cheaper option. We've been fighting it ever since. So the box and the chassis don't like talking to each other. One's too modern, one's everything's old and analog, and we've been having electrical problems for the last 10 years, and it's frankly it's unsafe. So it's low miles. The chassis itself is really good, but the box in the back is totally antiquated, and it makes for an unsafe environment. So it's going to be a bill, right? It's going to be one of those things where originally it's $290,000, not including tax. It's going to be closer to probably $320,000, $330,000. We're going to offset that cost, one, by selling the old ambulance. We're hoping to get anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 on it, depending on what the market is. Again, the hard part is we're selling a 1992, 2014 model ambulance, so we're not going to get half the cost of what this new one just costed us. The other thing is we're going to offset through, we made over $328,000 on mutual aid last year. It isn't reflected in the budget. It's not updated yet. You should see it on the quarter four budget. Also, this is our only source of healthcare in Shelter Cove, is Shelter Cove Fire and Ambulance. So when we have a retirement community, if you can't get yourself over the hill, we're doing that 15, 20 times a month, taking people to the other ambulance that comes out of town. The other thing that we're still in the infancy on is we can now get a contract to transport those patients and bill those patients insurance. And so what we're talking about the fire department is we're very committed to not billing community members, but all the rescues that we go on in the King Range, non-community members, and then even the insurance of community members, as long as it doesn't increase anything for our community members. And there's other smaller districts that do that basically say, hey, we're going to bill you, whatever the insurance doesn't pay, we'll waive. And so that's how they kind of keep it fair while still making money. Our previous ambulance wouldn't pass the county inspection. There was some old stuff on it that we weren't confident on. The new one's state of the art. So everything, including our risk reduction, it has a gurney system that will actually lift the patient up and load them into the ambulance. And Allie's been around, Johnny's been around. That's our scariest moment, because some of the patients, we have 2 or 3 people having to lift them into the ambulance. This does it automatically. So we reduce our risk from getting anybody hurt with back injuries. Overall, it's a good deal. We're expecting it. It's got to get shipped from South Bend, Indiana to Huntington Beach, where they're going to put all of our custom radios in it, and then they're going to drive it up. So we're expecting first or second week in June. And the bill is on delivery. So that's one of those things, working with Chris and Tony. getting that paid with reserve funds, and then the fire department's going to pay that back out of our operating costs over the next year. So we intend to pay on everything back on that ambulance, and then start making money on that ambulance within 5 years. So again, it is an upfront shock, but that's something that we're going to have to do as an entire district if we want to continue the services that we're continuing and that we're providing. And going back to even the SCADA system, is we had opportunities at the time, went to the board, we picked the cheapest route. And then now 5-10 years later, we start seeing the repercussions of that thought process. And a lot of it is driven because we just don't have the capital funds at the time. But I think a lot of that will be helped with the reorganization of our reserve funds and how we utilize those to basically prevent an emergency instead of paying for an emergency repair once it happens. So, we've been trying to do that in the fire department by replacing our apparatus before it breaks down. Call volume wise, last month at 13 incidents for 911s, not that busy of a month for us. But if you look at the calls, the type of calls were very different. So the sheriff didn't bring it up, but we had a full-blown domestic attempted murder. We had somebody get shot at one of the hotels. Myself and our battalion chief were actually at a training, and that's kind of scenes when everything goes down. That's kind of crazy. But our guys and gals handled it really well. There was a victim shot in the hand, and our fire members were utilized to find and secure the firearm that was thrown over the bank. So we had 2 different staging calls where we have to stage out of the area and wait for the 911 law enforcement response. And that is something too, my liaisons I've talked to you before, is we are missing out on that law enforcement side. Our fire rescue side is getting more and more capable and consistent. And since we lost Tom Allman, we haven't had that person in the cove that's not just responding to calls, but just here. The old saying is we're not paid for what's happening, we're paid for what's good happening in the fire rescue and law enforcement side. And that's very true with the law enforcement side too. So as a board, as a fire chief, I can only do so much on the law enforcement side. But as the board, the public safety side, that's really what we're missing in Shelter Cove to really have one of those pillars of the community, which is law enforcement. Unfortunately, with the way the special district's designated, we can't have law enforcement, that we're exempt from that. But we could be creative maybe in the future with security guards or something else. If the sheriff says, hey, we can't fund that resident deputy that there used to be funded for. So I get we're not super busy, but if your house gets broken into once in 10 years, you're going to want that sheriff a lot closer than an hour or 2 hours away. So that's something I think we need to put on our radar as far as politically pushing for that. I know they know up there that we want a resident deputy, but it is hard to justify just purely on call volume if you don't look at the bigger picture of having that security of somebody here paid. So that's definitely going to be quite a comment. Yeah.
Security personnel are just to observe and report. That's it.
Exactly.
So even in a situation like you had at the hotel, they couldn't go in.
Yeah, I understand that. There's something out there that would prevent something from happening. And then, they have those patrol officers. And personally, I want a resident deputy. I want a full-blown deputy, but I know there's costs involved with that. We're not going to get a Tom Allman. It's really hard to beat that, right? Now he's Mayor Tom Allman. If you haven't read the news lately.
Is he?
Yeah, so he's was on the board. He got elected because their mayor left. So guy does a little bit of everything. But yeah, something to that extent. It is going to be a time and place again where we're going to need law enforcement. And I'm not for having a full-blown SWAT team out here, but one person that is a good resident deputy that understands the community. I have nothing but good things to say in the brief moment that we had Tom while he was here. So it was nice to have the fire rescue and the law enforcement side of our community. We also had our first vegetation fire of the year. So we had a quarter-acre vegetation fire out on Paradise Ridge Road. Again, we were first into, even though it's CAL FIRE, DPA, DLM's land, Shelter Cove Fire usually gets there first and most of the stuff in the King Range because of our response time. Our crew handled it, and then we were able to bill CAL FIRE as like $2,500 or something like that, but it all adds up. And 53% of that goes back to the firefighters, and then the RID and the fire department can put that rest of that into our reserve fund or miscellaneous income. And then we just had a normal medical aids. Like I said, we are the first level of medical care for pretty much anything. From people come here because their blood pressure feels off, and our officers will take their blood pressure and either reassure them or we'll send them over the hill to the hospital. And that's something too in the future to look at is some other forms of healthcare through the fire department. Our projects, not too much has changed on our project wise. The big update is the evacuation route enhancement grant, the CAL FIRE grant going all the way to Garberville. They're almost completed on that, so they have about 2 more weeks left. That will be a huge workload off of my plate to get done with that. It is a 9-year grant, and we're going to be under budget by about $150,000, so I'm hoping to reallocate some of that, but it'll ultimately be up to CAL FIRE. And we might be able to get some planning dollars for some brood bell burning and some environmental compliance stuff for the next step of that project. But I've gotten nothing but good updates on that. It looks great. You know, in my opinion, obviously I'm biased to that project, but I've heard other community members from other communities that say, no, it looks great. Letting them know, I guess that started out in the RID and Shelter Cove fire. So we are trying to help out our local areas. Same thing with the Type 6 grant. So we were getting 10 trucks. Those are starting to get into production. We're hoping to have the first couple delivered. And again, that is a mutual aid building project. So that is, you know, basically through my time as a paid staff, the only paid staff fire chief in Southern Humboldt, I'm able to do things that other chiefs can't. And we're helping to build up to where if Shelter Cove has a fire, now these departments have state-of-the-art equipment they can bring and support us on a constant basis, which we didn't have before. Probably the most exciting thing is the floor is finished in the new building, so we can move on to the next step of that. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears to that project, but it's moving forward. So really excited. We did have quite a few medevacs last month, so please spread the word. If you don't have medevac insurance, we don't ask people anymore. We just call the helicopter, and you don't want to get anything without bill. It's very cheap, and it covers your whole household. Pretty much it.
Nick, I just have one.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of a comment. I agree with you on the public safety issue. We do need, has the board to start maybe pressuring the county, seeing what we can get down here, because ultimately it puts our fire department personnel in harm's way if there's nobody here to deal with certain situations. And I know that they, with the attempted, with the gunfire, there was also another incident, and it's, although the personnel that responded to that was not on duty at the time, they did kind of act as security, and that did concern me.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I had to make sure they weren't on duty, but
I know they weren't on duty, but even at that level, yeah, that made me.
It's a gray area for sure. And that was a direct call from a business owner that knows we don't have law enforcement, and it's quicker to call the local volunteers or neighborhood watch than 911.
We're not private security for businesses.
Yeah, if one of those guys would have been stabbed, they would have been stabbed. That would be the end of it, you know. And then that guy, you never know with those. They did have a weapon at the time. Luckily, there's an off-duty officer, but that's how long has it been since Tom? You know, it's been a long time. And we were told then they were looking for his replacement. I'm just curious where that you know kind of stopped.
The district has paid for training time and time again for local.
And they get a vast majority of the measures. Yeah. I know they're working on. They have issues with their hiring and their funds too, like everybody else, but we can't be shocked out.
So I guess that is a question from me is, do you need us as a board to be writing letters to the county, to the supervisors for Measure Z on behalf as well? I know you guys are doing a really good job, the Fire Chief Association, on securing funds, but would it help if we took a more political role in also reaching out to Michelle Bushnell?
I would say not on the fire Measure Z side, but being creative on that law enforcement side, because that's not my route at all. But the public safety is, and so I can kind of justify it through that. But law enforcement is a totally separate thing, and I do think that is going to be a hard sell for them because it's kind of been like you hear in their reports is they're saying it's a very quiet area, which it is. We don't have a lot of crime, which is awesome. And I think a lot of that came from Tom and the neighborhood watch, cleaning this place up and the economy in general. But that it's going to come a time and place where people realize there are a lot of vacant homes out here, and we don't. It's an hour and a half a month. So it's, you know, most of our neighborhood watch does an amazing job, and they've been that quasi role, but again, they're not law enforcement, you know, and I don't want to see those guys get put in a bad situation that we had a few years ago where one, you know, they shot somebody with a non-lethal round. So I think that's my request to the board, not on the fire side, but coming up with something like that politically.
Yeah, because I know there are certain issues happening right now where you know, the community's keeping an eye open for certain individuals, and
but that builds up.
Yep.
We've seen that cycle over the years. I've seen it, you know, in the 15 years I've been part of the fire department, where it cycles around. We get some bad times, and then we get a really good quiet time again.
One other last little thing. I know we need to get moving. Did you already speak to all the apparatus bags that you provided for all the other?
Yeah, so I looked at, I
departments?
think it's in your guys' report, so thanks for reminding me. Yeah, we got a $30,000 chunk of Measure Z to buy med bags for all the volunteers. So we've been building those med bags based off of our med bag that we've been running for the last 4 years and kind of beta tested it. So now we're helping out again.
And that was really impressive. I attended that medical training when they were putting those bags together for all the other fire departments, and I'm just,
It's a pretty good assembly line.
that was assembly line. That was great on you for getting that ordered when you did, because otherwise that would have increased, the cost would have increased dramatically. So yeah, thank you again. And we're safer because our community is safer because the other fire departments are now equipped with what they should be equipped with as well.
Yeah,
Sure. Thank you.
I just had a question about the truck. Thanks,
Yeah.
you're always the best. If it's like at the lower range at like 20,000, is there like any value in just keeping it, or maybe like making sure it stays within one of our, whale gold?
Yeah.
Sure.
We've looked at that too, and that's the biggest thing is storing it. We could do it for a couple years, and then if it's outside, it just wears down. We're hoping to get more. If it's at 20,000 or less range, then I think it does open up affordability of those other departments.
Yeah.
Where anything right now to offset that cost of the new one.
Okay.
It's in pretty good shape, so we're hoping to get the upper end of that. But the company that's selling us the ambulance, they're going to work as like a broker for us to try and get that sold off too. They don't directly sell used apparatus, but they have a bunch of contacts, so they've been kind of vague on what they think they can be, and rightfully so. They're not sure. They don't want to get our hopes up to something that they can't provide. But yeah, that's been something we've looked at too. And unfortunately, it would take quite a bit more money to make that thing to where we can use it as a reserve for our current ambulance, just because of the way the setup is to get it certified to be safe to use. So this one comes fully California certified and ready to go.
I got a couple comments.
Yes, no worries.
The first, you mentioned that from the mutual aid, that there's a line item and it's on the budget.
Yeah.
I personally don't think can't be in the budget because it would skew the budget, but it could just be an asterisk so that we could see what we're actually saving.
Yeah.
And so if you could make that a separate line item.
I can put it in the report.
I would like to see.
Yeah, as far as the line item in the budget, that's in my top priority.
No, I'm sure it's a line item.
Yeah.
Right, so it's an asterisk, because again, you need to get credit. I mean, basically, you need to have credit for that. Yeah. Right, so not to skew the budget. The other thing on the police officer, my last understanding, they were like 67 unfilled positions. He pretty made it, the sheriff, I don't know if he's a sergeant or whatever, made it pretty much clear that because of the lack of calls, we're not gonna get one, right? So whether it be in the budget or whatever it is, I broached the subject that maybe we could get a volunteer sheriff, but then the other one also is where do they stay? So they're ideally, yeah, that's exactly what we want, we need, and again, not even maybe all year, we definitely need it right now until the end of the season for tourists, because the people that were involved are, I would assume at the hotel, they're not from here. So I think that we're in a tough situation, ideally, yes, I think we need one right now. So, but again, I think that we have to also look at the reality. And the reality is that I think that as a board, or maybe even Chris, if we could get a letter or something that give it to the Board of Supervisors, we can definitely, the more that we express our concerns, maybe the odds are going to get better. We're not going to find a Tom Almond because this was his last hurrah before he quit. So I think the big one is even if we had a rotated sheriff, I mean, we even talked about putting a car in your driveway, but we can't even do that, right? So I think that even to be proactive and be, brainstorming, I don't know, but I think that something has to happen. But the reality of it, they're already short 67 cops or more, and that we don't have the call base. I don't know what we would do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is going to be a tough one. I'm more as far as like give me a number and give me a time frame. You know, we can get LeBron James here to be our resident sheriff if we have enough money. You know, and so I don't want somebody to say, and like I said, we've heard it. Tom was medically retired. You know, that was one of the big things. I think he would have stayed longer if he had the option. However, there are other people out there that retire. We give Mike a half a gun. You know, I think he'd be the right money. Right?
Seems excited about that.
Mike is a lot more a long time. But it's one of those things where the right person is out there. I want to know what they're doing to recruit the Shelter Cove resident deputy, not just generally in the other 57, because they do have a hard time recruiting. You know, it's the same thing as us with firefighters. You know, Santa Clara might be paying 80,000 more starting bonus. You know, and so trying to bring that in makes a lot of sense. But if we don't know what they're doing and how we can help them as a district, we've provided housing before as the RID. We've paid to put a kid through the academy. If we don't know that they're trying what they need from us, other than, it's just not going to happen, then we might not get one for another 10 or 15 years. And, you know, if we're just going to run status quo.
So that's pretty much what
yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's going to be a long haul, but they need to work with us to let us know, not just say, it's just unrealistic. We had one, so it is realistic, but we need to know how much it's going to cost.
Even a community resource officer
Yeah,
from the
something
sheriff's
to start
department
with,
would be
sure.
something
Yep.
moving forward.
Or even BLM when they had the ranger here over the 4th of July. They just having law enforcement presence.
Yeah. We do pay a lot of property tax from Shelter Cove to the county. And if we look at what the services we provide, we do get services, we're part of the county, but we don't get the same services as everybody. Around the forgotten outlaws.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got any questions, comments, public comments, questions from our big crowd today? Nobody. Okay, so we're going to move on, right, Chris? Nobody else left? All right, action items. Action item number 1, update the ordinance number 72 administrative rate schedule for connection fees. Second reading. Chris, take it away.
This is the second reading. Last month's board meeting, the majority of the board voted to update ordinance number 72, which is the administrative rate schedule for connection fees. The board motioned to lower the capacity charges for each of the 3 utilities from $9,000 to $5,000. The board also requested a yearly review of ordinance number 72, the first of which will occur in June next year. The revised ordinance with track changes enabled is attached. The recommendation is to approve changes to ordinance number 72.
Okay, anybody got any questions, comments? Second reading. Nothing?
I do.
Oh.
Basically the same thing I've stated over the last couple meetings. For what we provide out here, our hookup fees are extremely reasonable. And it's not just that the hookup fees are for that day's work that it takes for staff to put in the infrastructure, or to connect the houses to our infrastructure, but it also allows for money to also go for repairs and future infrastructure upgrades. In the state of California right now, I'm not seeing anywhere where they are lowering the prices of their connection fees. In fact, most places are increasing. And basically by lowering these hookup fees at this point, the people who are coming in to develop or who may be moving here to build, they'll be receiving the infrastructure that the rest of us have paid into at a higher price. And while we're hoping this brings in more development, that it's very risky, because really it's the cost of building that, in my opinion, is keeping people from being able to build out here when we have a plethora of homes for sale. And it's cheaper and easier for them to just renovate. I don't think it's up to the district to be our cost of maintenance and upgrades is not going down, it's going up. So we're talking about bringing in revenue, and while I understand that we think that this might help on bringing in more development, if it doesn't, and we have to come back in a year or two to revisit this, it's going to cost the district, especially with the water department, thousands of dollars to raise our rates again, plus bad PR at that moment or at that time. I think this is, in my opinion, this is a mistake. I don't understand. I mean, I know it's been explained to me that we're hoping it brings in more development, but I think this is a big risk, and it's going to, in my opinion, probably end up biting us.
Yeah,
Annie.
I'm gonna stick with my original
So I'm really concerned about this.
thoughts on this, but we can, there's no other comments.
Oh, there's no public comment.
Well, I know, I got public comment, I got online comments. We'll go to online comments first,
Okay.
and then I'll get to you, Seth. I won't forget about you.
Okay, Pam. Yeah.
Hi there. In view of the discussion you've just had, and to echo what Tisha's just said, that your infrastructure is aging, it hasn't been repaired because of lack of funds. I think this is I don't want to say what's truly in my head, but I think this is a very backwards move. I can't understand why you would why you would even consider this. Things are getting more expensive. Your utility hookups are a minute fraction of the cost of building a house in Shelter Cove. If you're going to build here, or anywhere for that matter, you're going to pay the price for doing that. If you really want to be in Shelter Cove, this is not the thing that is going to stop you building. So really, why shoot yourself in the foot when you're really hurting for money? That's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else online?
No.
Seth, come on up, buddy.
I'm Seth Plank. I'm a resident here and been building for over 20 years. I agree with Pam. The price of building or discouraging of building has never been the hookup fee. It's always been the economy at the time and what you can get for what you pay for. Currently in Southern Humboldt County, nobody is getting meters. There is no meters being given by PG&E in Southern Humboldt except Shelter Cove. That's the only place you can get them. And it'll probably be that way until the new substation in Garberville is built. Yeah, the idea that we would at this time be lowering when first half of this meeting was how strapped we are for cash is like, I don't know where the logic is other than continually being told by certain people that if we lower the cost, building will come. While that does seem to make logical sense and does work in some areas, that's not how Shelter Cove is, due to the fact that it's mostly vacation rentals, second homes. Everything, the growth and shrinkage of our economy is not an average, and it shouldn't be looked at like that. So I just encourage the board to maintain the cost and go forward. It's not exorbitant. It's a lot lower than a lot of places in California and a little higher than some places. But what is being delivered to the customers out here, I don't think it can be delivered for less. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Seth. All right, anybody else?
I was just going to say, one of the reasons I support this lowering it is because we need to try and do something. You guys are talking about we're not getting the 9,000 from, we haven't had anyone apply to build out here. So we're really not getting any revenue. So there's that. And then also, I think people are sensitive to prices. We live in Shelter Cove. We actually do have to try other ways to attract people to the area. We're almost like nowhere in California. So we actually do have to try other ways. And we also have to remain flexible, as a board, just because we've been doing things a certain way does not mean that we can try something different and then try again. I think if anything, we've always held to how things are and not tried soon enough. And then, so I guess I'm just saying that I do think people are price sensitive, and I think we do offer something, but you know what? We're not going to actually get new customers unless we actually get new buildings. So it comes back to that too. Like, you know, so that's my main thing. We need more, a bigger customer base. I mean, what, maybe like 10 people will apply? Like, it's not going to be this people pounding on the door to get in. And if it is, we'll revisit it. Like, I just think like not trying. I mean, how many people have we had apply? Well, we've had one new house in how many years?
There's currently 3 houses in the current process.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, so 3 houses times 5,000, that's like 15,000, or, you know, for each. But it's not really that much. We're losing out on like $12,000 just to get. But the thing is, we want customers because we actually need those service fees. And depending on how things go, you know, with this, the tax and everything, it just, I don't know. From my point of view, it just makes sense to try something and actually lower the price because, you know, one of the things I've learned now dealing with a lot of government fees is that, you know what, you don't want to pay these fees. So when you actually have an opportunity to like save money on a fee, I think I think that's a way to attract new people.
Yeah, I mean, at the bare minimum, these types of, I believe that this, if we were even considering this, that it should be in accordance to a strategic plan. I think this we should be focusing on our strategic plan rather than messing with our rate structure at this point. It, I know of people who were getting ready to pay for hookups at the higher cost, and now that they heard that it's lower, they're waiting until it's lowered, and we're going to be losing money that way. Every little bit counts at this point, and I just, yeah, I believe it's a mistake.
Okay. Anybody else comment? No? All right. Let's.
Hold on. Pam, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I do have a comment. There are approximately 15 very nice homes for sale in Shelter Cove currently. I think you should speak to your realtors and find out what people are saying they're looking for. I can tell you that we have made friends with 2 recent purchases in Shelter Cove. One who purchased land, decided it was too expensive to build, so they are now looking for a home, and one who was looking for land and decided for the very same reason they could take a well-built home and remodel it versus ground-up process. The ground-up process, building a home, is not for everybody. So speak to your realtors and find out what people are saying about whether they would build or buy in Shelter Cove as a preference before you go and mess with your revenue.
I mean, actually, I am friends with 2 really good realtors out here, and there's a lack of, everyone wants an ocean view home. And I think right now there's really only like a few homes that have an ocean view. So, I mean, people want an ocean view that are buying homes. That's why the homes that are still on the market are on the market. And also, you know, even with like the housing crisis too, like, wouldn't we want people to build more homes so that these older homes can actually go to people that work at the businesses here, or could be sold to them, you know, so they could own their own home and be like a part of the community? It's like, I get like we have like a certain stock of houses, but at some point we have to like move on from that thought, like this is enough, and actually just try new things. Because I mean, even as Nick was saying, even we're having to explore a lot of new ideas right now in the Cove because we're in this unprecedented time. And so, I mean, honestly, like lowering the connection fees, it doesn't seem like that hard of a concept for me because we're trying new things.
If we're lowering the hookup fees for potentially people's second homes and potential Airbnbs, of which we have a plethora of, which is all private businesses, they have the capabilities to pay our hookup fees at the cost that they are. It's gonna, and I understand needing to think outside of the box and do things differently, which we are, but I think it should be done in accordance to the bigger picture of a strategic plan. If we make this decision and we lower the hookup fees, and I won't repeat myself after this again, but basically it's going to cost the district thousands of dollars to raise our hookup fees back up to where they are, because we have to do with water, we have to do mass mailings to every property, all 4,000 lots, property owners, plus hold multiple town halls and public outreach, which is staff time, and it's going to cost us a lot of money.
But they've done it in the past.
We have done it, and it cost
3 times, right?
Well, and with that, when it came, that was when it has to do with the water. You don't have to hold them if you're lowering the water, if you're lowering the prices. If you're increasing the prices, the last time we looked at our rate schedule, we lowered the water by thousands of dollars already, and that was just done a few, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. Water is a valuable resource, and we have a lot of infrastructure to go along with that. I was even looking at, I was trying to figure out, like, how could I support this? And, you know, the only thing that I could toy with for me is maybe lower, and I don't even, and I still don't even like saying it, is lowering the electrical, but keeping the water where it's at, because our water infrastructure is in such dire need of funds. But really, all of our utilities are in trouble. So I think this, again, it's,
Okay.
in my opinion, it's a mistake. I won't repeat anymore.
Just one more, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Mike, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my only other comment is that, about the electrical, is that part of my motivation is to, like, you know, get people tied into RID, because I think just the way solar is going, like, people will be more motivated to not tie into, like, our electrical rates, because it'll be cheaper to just get like a power wall and solar. And so if we can get them to commit, then we can actually get money from the consumers, you know. Otherwise, like, if you're looking at between, like, oh, connecting solar or connecting to RID, well, I'll just do the solar. It's like a one-time payment. But, like, really what I was also lowering these costs is just to get people to commit to our power grid, you know, so we can get these customers with these service-based charges that can actually help support our infrastructure.
So the only utilities that the people who buy property here are required to hook up to is the not the electrical, is the water and the sewer. Or the sewer, and the water. The water. Those are the two utilities that are required, no matter if you're in the sewer part of the cove or the septic part of the cove. As far as the electric goes, people can still put on the solar anywhere in the cove. I think looking at the bigger picture of getting the district solar would be a better use of having our infrastructure on solar. Then we could look at saving the ratepayers money on that level, because the district is the #1 consumer of electricity. And that's something that taxpayers, everybody pays for. So in my opinion, yeah, I've already said it.
All right. So we're at the point now, we're looking for a motion.
I'm doing the recommendation part, right?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve changes to ordinance number 72.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
Roll call?
Jeff Hildreth,
Aye.
Session Sheen,
No.
Wes Baumein.
Aye.
Kristen Sanders,
Aye.
Mike Solari.
No. Motion carries. All right, moving on, action item number 2. Consider update to policy number 3067, up the utility capacity charge payment assistance program, first reading. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, so this was brought to my attention that, along with ordinance number 72, we currently have a policy that allows a potential customer to pay their capacity charges over the course of 3 years. So while we're reducing the utility capacity charges with the update of ordinance number 72, the board should also consider revising this policy. This policy allows for a prospective utility customer to pay their respective utility capacity charges interest-free over the course of 3 years with a nominal application fee of $100. To recoup the administrative costs incurred while tracking these plans and to incentivize a prospective customer to pay upfront, staff recommend adding a 10% fee to the total capacity charge payment plan, which can be prorated into the monthly payments. This fee would translate to an additional currently $1,500 if the customer is connecting all 3 utilities, or roughly $42 more per month on their 3-year payment plan. Revised policy with track changes enabled is attached. Apologize about this policy. This is a really wordy and a repetitive policy. It probably needs a lot of cleaning up. I just wanted to make sure we could get this change in sooner than later.
Yeah, I don't know why we were not charging interest on that. Kind of crazy, but yeah, I'm all for this. This looks like something we should have been doing all along. So anyway, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board.
I totally agree with you, Mike. Yeah.
Joe? Discussion?
Yeah, this should have been done at the on the onset of that payment plan. With this, but apparently, how many customers do we have right now on payment plans?
3 or 4?
Okay, so this wouldn't affect them.
No.
They already signed agreements.
Okay.
My only concern would be this 10% fee, and to make sure that that percentage is legal, and that we're not running afoul of any usury laws or any other laws that might prevent us from charging it as a public agency.
Yeah, you can check with other agencies. I'm sure they're charging an interest. Write it in the policy, but yeah, check if they go. Good idea. Jeff, you got anything?
I have to agree with you, Mike and Wes. I think that it's cost of doing business.
Yeah. Okay. Public comment on this topic? Or crowd? No? Any staff comments? No? Let's get a motion.
I would just say that you probably shouldn't make a motion. I would say that you should, you guys have to bring this back next meeting after research.
I would agree.
Okay.
We'll table it.
That's a good idea. We'll table it. No action. Moving on. Update of ordinance number 71, administrative rate schedule for electrical usage, second reading.
Yeah, we've seen this one, talked about this one before too. District ordinance number 71 is the administrative rate schedule for electrical usage. The board updated this ordinance in December 2019 and then again in April 2023. For the 2019 update, the board voted in favor of a 5-year 3.0% increase per year, beginning in July 2020 through last July 2024. In 2023, the board also voted in favor of an additional flat $25 increase to the monthly electrical service charge. These increases in electrical rates ended last year in July. The board voted to amend ordinance number 71 further by lowering the tier 3 residential electric rates from 1.2636 per kilowatt hour to 0.6028. The revised ordinance with track changes enabled is attached. Recommendation is to approve the changes. Ordinance number 71 effective with next month's billing cycle.
So nothing change from first reading, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I like this. Move forward. Anybody else? No? I know we talked about this extensively. Tesha?
I, again, would feel better about this if we were looking at all 3 tiers together as a whole instead of piecemealing this together. It's, in my view, not the way we should be operating.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Anyone
I'm
else?
gonna say my comment
Oh.
is the same. We've had extensive
Yeah.
discussion about this. I think that it's a great idea on the third tier, but I unfortunately don't think that's where we should stop.
All right. Public comment? Anybody? No? All right, let's get a motion going.
I'll make a motion to approve changes to ordinance number 71, effective with a June 2025 billing cycle.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Kristen Sanders,
Aye.
Wes Bonneway,
Aye.
Mike Solori,
Aye.
Jessica Machine,
No.
Jeff Hildreth.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on, action item number 4, consider changes to the board meeting schedule. Chris?
Yeah, this is another one we've been talking about for a while. I'll share my screen. Okay, so recent community interest has caused the board to consider changing regular board meeting times. Staff posted a community survey on RID's Facebook page through the Pioneers email list and with the April bills to gather the community's responses. Now, to date, and we've closed the survey, so this is it. There have been a total of 38 votes. The table and chart on the screen show those results. Half of them have been for just where we start right now, 9 a.m. Another 11, or 29% for the evening. 16% were no preference, could be either or. 5% were other, which was basically evening because they were saying late afternoon. So these are the results. There's still potential overtime costs for hourly staff if we did evening meetings, and the recommendation is because the survey results do not definitively support changing the board meeting times, staff recommend leaving the meetings at 9 a.m. If a change in the board meeting times is desired by a vote of the board, staff will bring the item back to the next meeting for a resolution. That's typically policy.
Okay, well, I mean, these numbers don't show me a reason why we should change our time for the board meetings. But I'd like to hear from the rest of the board. Anybody?
Yeah. Again, just for the reasons that Chris just stated, as far as us, I believe it's better for better usage of staff time and also for the board to have ample enough time to have our meetings be whatever time. We're going to be having longer and longer meetings as we start getting into the thick of the meat of the district, so to speak. And one thing that, like I did speak to with the town hall, it was nice. It was a nice attendance, but again, towards the end there, we got rushed by the public to hurry up and wrap it up. And when you do the board trainings and on how we're supposed to be operating, they tell you time and time again that these meetings, yes, we're a public agency. Yes, this is a time that people can come do and give public comment at an open forum. But ultimately, these meetings are for the board, for us to be able to discuss in detail, sometimes getting into the weeds, and it takes time. And yeah, I think that if we were to hold them in the evenings, that would be going later into the evening than people would appreciate. And by rushing things, we are going to be missing key facts or important information. So I hope that we keep it where it's at.
Yeah, me too. Anybody else? Nobody?
I have some for evenings. That's what I'm accustomed to dealing with other boards, and I think it's a valid system, and I think that we would get more public interaction. I'm not sure, we don't. This survey really kind of doesn't tell us anything, unfortunately. just kind of with a 50-50 split. So I don't, yeah.
I'm gonna say I have to agree with Chris's recommendations. I don't want to spend more money on staff time. I think that when we did that one survey, with that one that was intended last time, that at all the 15 people, half of them wouldn't show up if it wasn't night, and they're the most vocal. So I'm gonna have to agree with Chris's recommendation.
Okay. Anybody else?
Anyone from our
Jessica?
If you want an example, I attended the Parks and Rec town hall, and so with my time setting up for the meeting and being there, I left the next day at 11 a.m. because of compensatory time for time and a half. So that meant the office lost me for
Duly noted.
5.5 hours.
Thank you. All right, public comment on this topic? No? All right, does anyone feel inclined to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to consider changes to the board schedule meeting, using Chris's recommendation and keeping it the same.
We don't need to make a motion
Do
for
we need
that.
to make a motion for that?
Isn't that the
No.
one?
If we're not in favor of it, we will just
Do we need to
take
vote?
no action on it. But if someone does want to make a motion, they can to get a board vote.
Yeah, if you guys want to change something, then a motion, so everybody, if
But we're not
the
changing it.
people who filed complaints.
I'll make the motion, we don't change anything.
Well, we don't have to.
Yeah, I don't think we have to make a motion for that.
So, does anyone want to make a motion? If not, we will just take no action and move on. Take no action? Take no action. All right. I guess won't come up again, I hope. Good. All right, moving on. Action item number 5, consider draft 25-26 Resort Improvement District number 1 and Shelter Cove Fire Department budget presentation, first reading. Who's gonna do this one first? Chris, you were next.
Well, I can just give you the background. The attached draft budget was prepared using updated budget development guidelines and includes recommendations from all staff. Comments and suggestions made at today's meeting will be considered for incorporation in the final budget, which will be presented to the board for adoption at the June board meeting. And as Jeff also pointed out, we've had 2 budget advisory committee meetings. We'll have another one after this board meeting. So there are 2 board members involved with this budget meeting also. I guess the recommendation is to incorporate suggested modifications and bring item back next month for final reading and approval.
Okay. I have, just so everyone knows, I have a very tough time with these budgets and reading this and not falling asleep and staying focused. It's very difficult for me. But I appreciate everyone's hard work into this budget. I don't like the final numbers on the back page. It's very depressing. See the district said the deficit, but it's something we're going to have to work on that, I think. Any comments from other board members?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with more with what you just said, Mike. I think that, but we also haven't gotten to the individual departments other than administrative and whatever. We haven't got into the water, sewer, and power. So there's still a lot more to know before that we even consider that.
First, I do want to thank Tristan and Jeff for taking on the role of the budget committee. I know that was no easy task, and I also appreciate Chris, your as far as when you're looking at the operation of the capital income coming in, it's decreased by a lot compared to the last year's budget, but that's more in alignment of where we're headed. So I do appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we don't like the numbers in red at the end, but as a public agency, we're never going to be in the black. And this is the cost of what we need. I went through here. I did not see anything that we could be cutting from here.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're have a lot of yeah, a lot. I don't see any fluff in here. So and in fact, what I would like to see is when it comes to training, I feel like that we need more in the budget for perhaps on the admin side. I would like to see the general manager, Chris and Jessica, both be able to do more trainings for general manager. And I don't know if that 1,500 is going to be enough for that. Also, under the Parks and Rec, we have $200 training. And one thing that keeps coming up at the Parks and Rec committee meeting is the need for, in terms of the golf course, and especially if we turn it into a multi-course, having that employee that's in charge of that be trained up to par, up to the standards of what that actually takes to keep it to where we won't be getting as many complaints as we currently do in regards to the maintenance of the golf course. I don't know how much that is. I could help look into it for the next budget and see about that. I would like to see that increased. And what was my other? And then I had one more. On page 3, on line item 920XX, I guess we don't have a number for that exactly, but the lot WC well.
Yes.
Could you speak to that and just let the board know what the potential increase might be?
Yeah, we did recently. That one is a little bit underfunded. Right there is just for the electrical component to incorporate that new well into our system, get it working. $5,000 was the quote for that. We are actually going to have to add at least 15,000, maybe more, maybe 20,000, to also include the piping, maybe the enclosure, all the components needed to actually tie that well into our distribution system. That is a grant-funded project. The grant construction deadline is actually in September of this year, so we actually need to fast track that one. We were kind of holding on for a bit to try to do some more flushing and sampling. The electrical has been holding us back on that one. We'd have to bring up a portable generator to make that work. Our staff has been a little staffed for time recently. But we are going to fast track that one, so we will have to add probably minimum 15,000 to that capital project with a lot W well installation.
Because we've already exceeded the grant, correct?
There's a contingency. I think there's 5,000 left
Of that.
or so that we will get once we're completed.
And so we're looking at maybe a 15 to 20,000 extra.
Yeah.
For the different districts. Okay. I would like to see that reflected. Yes, for now.
I was gonna say that as the committee with Chris, we haven't discussed the water power sewer. That's what the next meeting is gonna be about. So that may change too.
Okay, so that's what I'd like to see that.
Yeah, there are some other changes to note. I can also point out, like for instance, just above that is the capital project for SCADA system programming. We talked about that a little bit earlier. There's $30,000 in there. Based on recent conversation with David Absher, it's probably have to increase that to $40,000. So on the right side, the line item for facility maintenance repair and sewer, we have 13,000 listed. You can probably reduce that to probably 2,500. Travis, you want to speak to that real quick?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
Facility maintenance and sewer, and you said you essentially do that in-house, right?
Yes. So our south wall at the control building, not control building, back of the wastewater department, staff did a quote for approximately around $2,400. Price saving of around $8,000 from a local contractor. So in-house, we can save right there $8,000 just for 4x8 hardy, all the sheets, basic batter boards, all the supplies, and then the work done. So that's right there, $8,000 approximately saving that we just were able to figure out last week.
Yeah. And that's for staff to be hired as a contractor in order to do the work?
To do
Staff to do the work.
Yeah, we've had,
as staff.
yeah, we've had internal staff do facility maintenance projects like that before. We'll make sure we do it all kosher with permitting, and make sure we're doing it right.
Right. And that's just, you said the soft wall, and I want to make sure that that's like, okay. So it's just the actual physical wall, it's not, okay. Yeah, exterior.
What was there, there's some rock and
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw that on the tour. I think that's, yeah, great, okay.
Anybody else?
So if you have not finished going through the budget in terms of having only covered one of these 6 issues, I mean, it's kind of hard for us to get a real solid handle on.
I totally agree with you.
Okay, so why was it presented to us before you were done?
Because it's one time frame.
Okay.
And then 2, not prepared to do it. I mean, again, it was really, all of a sudden we had a board meeting. So that's why we're scheduling another one.
Okay. So if we go through with this first reading, any changes will have to be like line item and clearly laid out for the second reading. So we'll understand clearly what we're looking at.
Yes, I'll make sure those are highlighted.
So can we table this, or do we need to approve this as it is and then go line item by line item for the next meeting, or can we approve everything at the next meeting?
I believe we have to, because it has a second reading,
Right.
it's by June.
And
So
it has to be done by
right,
then.
right. We're under time constraint.
So we could do the first reading approval with modifications that have been suggested already, and then the second reading, he'll have to do track changes on the document so we can see what the differences are and really do our homework for the next one to get that second reading in a timely manner.
Is that right, Jessica?
Is that right?
I think you guys have to have an approved budget by July 1. So you only have one chance in June to do it. So we want to get everything as complete by June as we can.
Right.
It's not like an ordinance where there has to be 2 readings approved.
Yeah, and we're still waiting on the fire department too. That being said, I was thinking maybe we could also, auction off dinner with Nick.
I thought we needed 2 readings on this to approve this.
I'm just going by what was in the past. I guess I'll have to do some research. In the past, there's always been 2 readings.
2 readings, correct.
That might just be for the board's knowledge or review, so you can look at it the first time, offer suggestions.
And make it that deadline. If you guys come back with a change or don't approve it by June or July 1, we have no budget going forward.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's
so that's the question. So going back to what Tasha was saying, I mean, we could easily shelve this and have all the changes on June for our first reading. Second reading, July, would we still be in the budget confines?
Yeah, you could-
Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, obviously, any first reading is open for people to provide comments and make the changes. So with the second reading, you guys can approve it with the second reading with changes. As far as I can.
So that might be the way to do it.
I mean, if you guys have a bunch of changes next time, we might have to have a special meeting to approve it before July 1st.
So I would suggest then that we table this until the June meeting so that we can have another meeting or 2, because it might even be 2, Chris. And then we would have the first reading in June with a revised or really a completed, updated document. And then our second reading would be July, once we accept it.
No. We would have to have it all done before July. We'd have to have special.
We need to just approve the first reading. This is my thoughts. is we would approve the first reading now to get that out of the way. And then as long as it's done with the track changes for next month, then we can make those suggestions. And then if we're really in the weeds on this thing and we really got to get it done, then we'll do a special meeting on that moving forward. But I mean, it's up to the board. That's just my suggestion because I really think we need 2 readings and let's just play it safe. So.
Nick, do you have anything to add for the fire department?
No, I mean, I have a PowerPoint presentation I'll do next month because I didn't get any questions. So please, if you guys have questions, let us know so we can address them before it's an open public meeting. So our budget is fairly simple, yet also different and complicated in some ways than the rest of it. So if you guys want to know more about our budget, I'll have that. But if you do have a question or want to know more, I can incorporate it into that presentation without trying to guess what you guys want to hear about. So please reach out to me, and I can also do it at the committee meeting first to save you guys a little bit of time. But as far as I understand, this is for you guys to have that budget first. You guys get that first reading of the new budget to go through it, pick it apart, and then give us feedback before next month's meeting. So we can go through there and get it dialed in as much as possible. And if the committee is waiting until that, 2 weeks before, a week before, then the other 3 board members aren't going to see it first. So if we can get this budget as dialed in as we can before that, it will save us to where only we have a couple comments. And then also too, not to throw a wrench in, but looking forward into the futures, if we are running in a black budget, will we ever be able to keep up with the deferred maintenance and then also union negotiations with increased labor costs? So long-term planning on that.
And our CalPERS.
Yeah, and CalPERS.
Okay, so one more, since we are getting in the weeds here, under this first. I just noticed, I didn't find it on the last budget from last year, but I have it marked here on this year's budget. Office supplies was decreased. Is there a reason for that?
I think it was based on historical trends and.
It seems like our office supplies have been pretty high.
Oh, I think we raised it too for the stamp postage.
So you just
Yeah.
added more for the postage?
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay.
in anticipation of the special utilities tax.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Okay.
So, but you said it was decreased?
Compared to the last year's budget, just the office. I think the postage was increased, and so I see what you did. I think I understand what you did then.
Oh, maybe it's envelopes, or I know we had a big.
No, I think just that answered my question. I think what you guys did is probably took from the office supply line and just added it in, reduced that, and then added it more for the postage. Is what it is.
Well, we'll do more paper.
Yeah, and then so I guess for me, from what I would like to see, I would like to see more funding for training, for the admin on the admin side, and for the Parks and Rec on whether that's. And then the other thing, and I don't know, this isn't in this year's in here, is where we do have an opening, a vacancy, and I think you'll be addressing staff vacancies at next month's meeting. But what I'm wondering is if if there's room in the budget to be doing a part-time, bringing back the part-time employee for landscaping maintenance, both down at the golf course, but then also not just for the golf course, but also for weed whacking utilities, poles and such like that, where that funding might come from.
The biggest issue on that is because it's a union, we're a union shop, so that's where it gets a little sticky on that one.
On the part-time?
Yeah.
Would that be union?
Well, I mean.
I don't.
We do have a temporary labor.
Yeah, it's called the temporary.
We could do a seasonal too.
Yeah, that's basically what that is, a seasonal temporary. And I think that would help us and help alleviate staff from our union jobs from having to do the maintenance on the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our employees are all union.
I mean, the administration isn't. The administration part isn't, and nor is with
Correct.
Nor would a temporary or the seasonal worker be.
You sure about that?
I'm pretty sure about that, but we can look into that.
Not if they're doing that type of work. I don't think so.
You still have to have the shop steward.
Shop steward. Hello.
Well, we had Charles come and he redid the.
And was he part of the union negotiations? Yeah.
But that was what Justin, I have no idea. He was just like showed up and was like, I'm here to weed eat poles. I'm like, all right, here's the stuff, go do it, so we don't have to.
So could staff, could you find that out if that temporary or seasonal worker would be required to meet union standards?
Okay.
If they're doing work of our unionized labor force, we cannot hire out work unless it's contract work.
I guess my concern is I'm wondering why we're using our electrical unionized staff.
We have a limited workforce.
I know.
We
So
have
if
to
we
get the
have
job done.
exactly.
Correct. But
But
even the guy who mows lawns is a union labor.
I know in the past too, there's been like meter reader slash, has not been in the union, but they've been confidential employee lists. So we've had jobs like that in the past. I don't know. I have to check with our union representative if that's still kosher.
Okay.
Well, that's because the union didn't want to do that job. The union reps.
Yeah. We currently have it in the fire department as the temporary labor fire.
Yeah.
It's for re-whacking hydrants and doing everything else. So, yeah, that's an easy one to run by the union. But yeah, the whole office staff isn't union.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
you know,
They're confidential employees.
Frank Ambish, I don't think was union when he did that job. So yeah, it would just be if they probably wanted to be union, but
It doesn't necessarily mean.
Maybe we could get a fire department volunteer.
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay, we had a public comment. Seth?
Just the con crews aren't union, are they?
No,
And
it's different.
and they're doing.
That's contract labor.
Yeah, so they're doing the same thing that sometimes the union people do have to do.
Correct.
Right. So yeah, I don't think it is a union. Not taking away from
We
his
can
job
com- we
because
can-
his job shouldn't be mowing. You know what I mean? It's not his job.
But he's saying it's contract labor.
That's contract labor. That's different.
Yeah.
We can contract them to build us we can contract with someone to build us a building, even though we have a construction crew at prevailing wage, yes. So, I mean, it's a fine line there, but anyway, moving forward, I'll shut up now.
I wanted to share my screen real quick too with your question about the office supplies real quick, just to touch base. It's kind of gives you a little insight of what we've been doing in the budget committee meetings too. So it's going to be really hard to see on this, but this line item, so what I've done is I've broken down all the departments and all their line items and then looked at, seen historically what they've actually spent in the last 5 fiscal years. And so this is office supplies that you were asking about, Tasha, and it's at 8,000 is what we put in the budget. And I based that on historically. You can see there have been years, right now we're projected to spend about 8,000. The year before that, 8,700, and 9,600, 7,700. So it kind of fluctuates. So I would go with kind of throwing an average number in there, a conservative average, and that's where the numbers are coming from. And then you can see some notes for other line items. So this is kind of insight of how we were coming up with these numbers.
Okay.
All right. Public comment? Any more public comment? Anyone else got anything to add? Let's look at getting a motion done if we want to do it. You don't need a motion on first reading?
And so you're clear on the direction on what we want to see added or what information we don't. You want to repeat it back to me?
Yeah, so we're looking, well, I'll add the changes, make sure that they're highlighted in red so you see what changed between now and then. Also, there's going to be another change in the labor budget based on some office staff changes. And say potential part-time laborer, we'll look into that and potentially add that in and tell you what that will be and then say yay or nay.
Okay.
All right, so no action on this. We can move on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business anyone would like to bring up?
With that being said, meeting adjourned, 12:14 hours.